keep that rolling.
Whenever ready.
Good.
Oh, we're on?
Yep.
We're live. We're live.
Hey.
Whoa, hello.
Hey, cool.
Hello. We're live on this is this thing on. I was just going to tell you,
Yes,
so we actually have a keg here in the office,
Oh,
but it just
yeah.
we out last week. And,
Are you serious?
yeah, and we are in talks right now.
You know
I'm
what? Never
sorry.
mind.
I'm sorry. Yeah. We were in talks yesterday with Luis about what to replace it with, but it is not in yet. And I'm like, no, Jeff. Without beer,
wait.
he's just not going to hang out.
Yeah, I mean, I have coffee, but
It's just not beer.
it's just not the same.
It's not beer.
Yeah.
Welcome stream. Let me see. Oh yeah, we're here. We're live. We're on. Welcome. We have a friend of the show, Jeff from Craft Computing. It's the smiley face camera is the camera. I know we got lots of cameras around here.
Yes. Sorry, camera 2. My bad.
Yeah. Jeff, you are in from out of town.
I am.
And we were like, let's connect. Last we saw each other in person was LTX.
Yeah.
And in the background, we've been chatting about having you come down, but now it's finally worked out. And this is the perfect time because we get you in this year, and then we'll get you in again next year.
Yeah. No, that's fun. I'm glad to finally be in town. We've tried a couple of different times to hook up, and it just hasn't worked out. So hey, here I am.
This is your first time in our studio.
Yeah.
Be honest. What does it smell like?
Smell. I hadn't even
Wow.
processed smell yet.
Yeah. Just
Wow.
just take it in. I'm curious to know an outside perspective of what it smells like.
My studio smells a lot like the tape you get on AliExpress boxes.
Yeah.
This doesn't quite have that same funk.
Yeah, we don't open too many boxes in here. We usually open it up.
Yeah. So this is more like, I want to say like MSI shrink wrap. Like,
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like-
Yeah, we do have.
Yeah.
I mean, MSI laptop right here. So
Oh,
yeah.
there you
Yeah. Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here. We're gonna have a fun show. We got some cool topics. Elena is here with a really cool shirt. I'm jealous of this shirt. You're gonna have to tell me where you got it because I might want to get my own. And then
no beer.
And then Willis, he's wearing glasses today.
I got the memo. Everyone's wearing glasses today.
Yeah.
Elena, when you see the screen later, you'll
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to pop up.
I don't wear glasses. Humble brag, I got a 2020 vision. But I don't want to. I just want to fit it.
Well,
They're actually hollow.
Are those? Do they have lenses or are you?
No.
Okay.
So I was cleaning out my car, and then I found these glasses. One of them was broken. They're sunglasses, so I just popped the other one out, and then just I was like, I'm just gonna wear these today.
Oh my God, you're one of
Willis,
those
you need
people.
to mute the camera. You're getting an echo.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Echo. Hello. All right. Yeah. So glasses, yeah, it's hollow. It's empty.
Wow.
You know, maybe later in life. I mean, you're a young buck. Maybe later in life you'll need it.
You'll know what it's like one of these days.
Yeah. Is the echo gone now?
Yes.
Okay.
It should be.
Okay. Sorry. Sometimes OBS likes to forget the settings that we have set. You know how it is. You use OBS?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make sure. Okay, it's gone.
And yes, it constantly likes to forget settings. I had in the middle of my stream last week, my microphone gain jumped by like 20, just randomly.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, hey,
ghosts in
it's
the
the
system.
glory of an open source
Yeah.
software, right?
Yep.
Is that it's a powerful tool, all for free,
Yes.
but also sometimes you just got to deal with some of those things.
Yeah, sometimes there's little quirks. I
yeah.
was trying to plug my mouse into my laptop right before the stream started, and I forgot that I'm running Linux on here, and for some reason it won't hot plug my mouse receiver without restarting the computer.
Well, that's Linux.
Yeah.
For Linux.
What PC is that though? Like, what laptop is that?
This is the GPD WinMax 2. It's a 10.2-inch laptop.
What's this size?
With a 1600p screen, 2560 1600, Ryzen 6800U.
Still a good chip.
This thing is an absolute beast of a laptop and
I'm-
super tiny. Like,
Yeah, I'm gonna get the specs from you because I am looking for a new travel laptop.
yeah, they have a new one with the 7840 Ryzen, so it's even more powerful than this one. But
Yeah, well, and if you want to show her the what it reveals, or no, she's on this camera.
She's
here.
on the.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I know,
A little
sorry.
webcam. That's
Yeah,
me.
there we go. Sorry, I was
Oh.
showing the audience. I was told camera 2 earlier, not
Yeah,
camera
sorry.
4.
I'm just,
Dreamception.
So it's got full controls here.
yeah.
It's got your
So,
shoulder buttons.
It's a gaming
Yeah.
handheld
yeah.
in the form of a
I
laptop.
think
Yeah.
That's a little too much though for my tiny paws here though. I do not have
It's remarkably comfortable. It really is.
I mean, but you probably have larger hands than I do. Like
I have these short, stubby little fingers.
You do have some stubby fingers.
Yeah.
Wow. That is.
Jeez, Adam, getting personal.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just. Yeah, that's it's being honest here.
Adam and I are almost the same height. Your fingers are like a full knuckle longer than
Yeah,
mine.
yeah. It happens. It happens. It's in that water where you live, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those lead pipes.
Paint chips. Yeah. Paint chips tasted really good
Yeah.
when I was a kid. But anyway, we're not here to talk about paint chips. We're here to talk about technology, and in particular, PC related to technology. I think we should just jump right into it. Elena, are you ready to roll? Jeff,
I'm
are
good.
you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So let me bring up the intro and see if I don't mess it up.
Welcome to Talking Heads, everyone. Episode. Oh, sorry.
Oh. Okay. Wrong intro. But actually, I'll say it. I'll say it now. I'm going to say it again later. But I will be on your podcast, Talking Heads, tomorrow.
That's right.
So-
Tomorrow night, episode 312. We're going to have Adam. We're trying to find a tap house or a brewery right now to go crash.
But we're not doing it live, right? Or are we doing it
Yeah,
live?
it's going live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. I love live.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Live. Drink some beer.
Time
That's
drinking.
right.
Have some fun. It'll be a good time. So look forward to that. I don't know why he invited kind of a noob like me. I don't know what interesting conversation I can bring to the table.
Well,
but
you
I'll try.
run Arch so on your Steam Deck. So
Yeah.
you'll fit
I've
right
got
in.
so much Linux experience now. Like it's what a year and a half of Linux. Linux is my go-to, I guess. So, all right, here we go.
Go for it.
Okay. In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk about, what did we talk about? That's what we're talking about. In this episode of The Full Nerd, we're talking about Windows 12, AMD calling, or no,
Wrong order.
wrong order. Here we go. Actually, we are going to start off with Windows 12. Sorry, I put the health of the PC at the end.
You didn't.
Yeah,
My
I
whole
know,
day
I'm
is
sorry.
ruined
I know,
now.
I'm sorry.
I gotta.
I'm sorry. I wanted to start off with Windows.
Oh
So
boy, what a day.
okay, here we go. Real intro. Engage. Engage. Are you a Star Trek person?
Oh, totally.
Okay, yeah, good. You're right at home here.
Yeah.
Hey, nice. You got on a screensaver. Yeah, there you go. All right.
Oh, like it.
All right, here we go. Keep this in the audio recording. In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk about Windows 12, Intel calling out shady AMD marketing, and the health of the PC industry. Almost lost it at the end. Welcome to episode 282 of The Full Nerd, PC World's premier podcast about PC hardware. I am your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray, and I am joined with Elena Yee. Hello, Elena.
Hi, everybody.
You're solo on the TV today. You just get the
I
TV
gotta fill this
all
whole-
to yourself.
Fill this whole screen and knock everything over in my area that you can't see.
Watch out. And then in the studio, live for the very first time,
IRL.
is friend of the show, Jeff from Craft Computing. Hello, Jeff.
Hello.
Man, we've been talking a while about having you on, so I'm glad it's finally happening. You are here officially on the show. Well, actually, not even the first. This is the first time you're on the show, and the in general, right? You haven't been on the show before, have you?
No, I at LTX. Technically, I was on one of your live streams.
Yeah,
but
on the live stream, but not on the podcast.
We've done a show together.
We've done shows together. Okay, yeah.
This is my first full nerd podcast, though.
Yeah, so your first one, you're starting off with a bang, and you're here in the studio.
right.
So I'm glad. And then you also gave me your take about the smell of the studio. You're gonna have to watch the pre-show to go back and get his thoughts on the smell of the studio. But
boy.
speaking of smells in the studio, just kidding.
Hey,
We have Willis Lai on the verticals and horizontals.
that's what that is. Hello, everyone. It's the smell of cheesecake. What you talking about? It's
Cheesecake,
nothing else
yeah,
than
the
that. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all.
I need to back it up. I need to redo the intro because now I need to call us award-winning podcast, The Full Nerd. Since the last time we did a podcast, we actually won a podcast award from hostingadvice.com.
Well, there you go.
Nice. I don't think it's AI written, but they gave us the award for best interviews and Q&A, The Full Nerd. So look at this award-winning Full Nerd podcast.
At one point, I think Anchor.fm had me at like the number 7 tech podcast to listen to.
I mean, Anchor.fm, so that's a real
Yeah,
website.
right.
I've heard of Anchor.fm.
Yeah, no, I popped up there for like one of their lists, and then I immediately disappeared, and I haven't figured out why I was there and then why I wasn't there.
Okay, so award-winning Talking Heads. Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
Before we go any further, Jeff, your YouTube channel is Craft Computing. Well, but you have a podcast, Talking Heads. I'm actually going to be on it tomorrow, so tune in live tomorrow evening. I don't know the exact time. We're still working it out,
6 p.m.-ish Pacific. Yeah.
Somewhere in there. But yeah, it maybe for people who don't know, they should know. But for people who don't know, what do you do over on your channel?
Over on my channel, I do a little bit of everything. My main focus is typically home labs, so setting up your own servers, hosting your own services, building servers either from scratch or used parts, getting into a lot of enterprise gear and using them in ways that they were never intended to be used. I also do pretty much everything there is with PC hardware. I do, full water cooling builds and case mods and, hardware reviews. So, yeah.
Yeah, good channel. You should go over there right now. Subscribe. We also got a $2 super chat from a friend of the show, VC Jester, or AKA Jester the Pester.
Thank you.
I guess we're going to start calling him. The Craft Computing is always the bee's knees with his dapper hat, and it is true. That is a very dapper hat.
Thank you.
And you know what? It smells like. It smells nice too. I like it. So good smelling hat there. Anyway, we're here.
Speaking of personal space.
We are here to talk about some PC hardware. We have some interesting news. It is towards the end of the year, so things are starting to lighten up a little bit, but we got some stuff to talk about. First up, let's talk about Windows 12. There is a report that Mark Hockman, senior writer over at PC World, there's a link in the description. He wrote up that there was this report about Windows 12 releasing in June of 2024, and if I know how to do my math, which I don't, that's like 5 months.
Ooh.
Over 5 months.
You're close.
Yeah, somewhere around there. No, June is the 6th month. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So we're talking about see, I told you I'm not good at math. So Windows 12 could be 6 months away. I want to start off and gauge the temperature of the room because I like to do this every once in a while. Elena, is your daily PC running Windows 10 or Windows, or I guess, what version of Windows are you running? It could be something else.
Yes.
Yes. You're using all of them.
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have one PC set up with Windows 11, one PC set up with Windows 10. Some of them that I use for testing software or, playing with software, both, because I like to see if the experience is at all different between the two. Typically not, just because Windows 10 is so closely related to Windows 11, but, I like to know. But I still have a very strong preference for one over the other, let's just say.
Oh, which one?
Guess.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Jeff, you play a lot with. I mean, I understand you're on this Linux thing I've heard about.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you use Windows as well. What is your main driver?
My main driver on my two main PCs in my office do run Windows 11. I've also got this laptop dual boots. I've got Zorin OS. Which is kind of a fun one, as well as Windows 11 dual boots on this one. I don't know if I actually have any Windows 10 systems left in my back catalog.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Sure,
and Willis.
Well, what if I say I'm still running Vista? Just kidding. Which I'm not. I'm just saying.
That explains the glasses then.
Yeah.
Wait, what version is this? No, I'm on 10.
I mean, but you have multiple machines, and they're all on 10.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, my main rig at home that I do all my editing and work on, that's Windows 10. You're going to have to pry that out of my cold dead hands. I'm a Windows 10 guy. But I have used lots of Windows 11. Laptops all ship with Windows 11. This is running Windows 11. My gaming PC, which is in my living room, hooked up to my TV, I did end up going Windows 11 with that one. So I've got plenty of time with Windows 11. But for work, for the thing that I really care about, I'm still stuck on. I'm not stuck. I'm there by choice. I'm still on 10. So I don't know. There's that whole thing about the even numbered OSs are the better ones. So
Yeah.
I think, I mean, if this is true, if this what this report is saying is true, that it's going to be out in June 2024, Windows 12, then I'm okay to just wait. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I've talked to a couple people who I cannot name, and I cannot vet my sources on this, but Windows 10, when it was introduced, we all know it was supposed to be the last version of Windows.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't even make it 2.5 years, and they announced Windows 11.
define last. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
So I have it on good authority that the new releases of Windows, 11 and now 12 might be contractually related because Microsoft was required by certain vendors to come out with a new version every so often.
Interesting.
And-
What kind of vendors are we talking about? Are we talking about enterprise?
We're
Are we
talking like enterprise.
Okay.
But and I can't really say more than that because I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Okay.
But yeah, there might have been some like marketing thing like Windows 10 will be the last version of Windows, and then some enterprise vendor goes, well,
like-
that's not possible because in our contract it says you'll have a new one by 2021, and they went, oh crap.
Interesting. Okay.
And so, hey, here we are 3 years later, we have Windows 12. So apparently that contract was renewed.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. Well, I mean, listen, I'm okay sticking on Windows 10. I have my reasons, but like Windows 11 has gotten to a good place. I can agree with that. Also, Gordon. I mean, he's not here, but Gordon recently, within the past 3 months, I think, he moved over to Windows 11 on his daily laptop. He was actually going to do a piece on his experience of switching, and then now he's on medical leave, of course. But I don't want to speak for him, but he was pleasantly surprised by the experience. He was ready to do the typical Gordon, come in and rant about how crappy he was, and then he was like, actually, I mean, I think
It's not that bad.
Yeah, the only thing that I think he got really hung up on, if I remember correctly, once again, I don't want to speak for him, but was how he. I mean, Elena, I think you can attest to this, how he's always just like, wait, you got to right click and then click again to get to the real right click menu.
Gosh.
That's, like
That
one
was
of his
me.
biggest.
I
Is that you?
wrote 2 editorials about it
Yeah.
because I'm so annoyed by it.
Can we just rant for a second how since Windows XP there's been 2 control panels or more, and they keep trying to we're going to consolidate the control panel and put all of your settings back into one window, and then there's a 3rd control panel. It's like, just do it. Fix it. Make it so I can go to control panel and everything is there. I don't care if it's control panel. I don't care if it's settings. I don't care if it's this or that. But when they started introducing categories in Windows XP, Service Pack 3 with, breaking up the control panel into easy to find chunks, which was missing half the things that you needed to actually click. And then they never reconsolidated it. And when we went over to Windows 8, we got the settings menu, which only did like a quarter of the things that you needed to do. You still needed to go back to control panel, which was still in categories, which you could then break up into the end. It's like,
I mean,
fix it.
to be fair, there's a lot that you can configure, and I think their messaging would be like, well, hey, most of the stuff you can get through, in this easy to use interface, which actually I do like the new settings in Windows 11. Especially with this new 23H2 or whatever the newest update that has like kind of it scales the window and whatnot. But I think their messaging would be like, well, we've got the deeper control panel stuff if you want to get in there. For power users, which is good. I don't want them to take those options away.
Right.
Because I think that's the other choice. They would be like, okay, well, you don't want 2 separate things, and we'll just take the control panel away. And then you're like, okay, wait, but hold up. You didn't integrate it into settings.
Yeah.
Prompt time.
You're right, yeah.
I feel as an enthusiast, if we keep pushing them on it, they'll go, well, screw it. You can just go do the group policy options by yourself then. And they'll take away the only GUI option
Which
that we
some
have.
people do.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. But yeah, like I'm not in that realm either. Like I'm not, I feel like every time I'm in like a group policy, I will mess something up. So I try not to go in there. because I'll accidentally
It's
hit
like-
something. But
It's like that scene from The Simpsons where Homer gets transported back to like the prehistoric era, and he's like, "Mustn't crush, mustn't kill." Like that's the feeling I always have
Yes, yes.
when I'm in like a registry type setting or like group policy editor. I'm like, I could really blow this up with ignorance. Like let's just not touch this too much.
I do use command line every once in a while, but I'm very careful about what I'm doing in there. It's usually I'm like, okay, I know the exact prompts, usually maybe IP config or something like that. It's like I know what I need to go in and do, and I'm not going to mess with too much in there.
Yeah, I spent 13 years as a Windows admin, sysadmin, and so I had to get really deep into the weeds on group policy and registry, and it's better if you don't touch most of that.
Yeah.
Command prompt, do not destroy.
On the topic,
Yes.
On the topic of settings, though, like I feel like Microsoft is doing the absolute opposite of what you're asking for, Jeff, because it's like it was surprising to me when Adam just said that Windows 11 setting menu is something that he likes, because I do not like how they bury stuff in that too, right? So it's like, okay, I don't even know which one it's in now, and if I want to go looking for it, I have to start clicking through all these sub menus to see if I can find it. And I think this is supposed to be, maybe I'm showing my age, where it's like you're just supposed to search for it, but it doesn't always come up. It doesn't always come up as immediately as I would like, and I'm kind of used to just going looking for it. So
Do you remember when you could change your desktop background and your resolution and your DPI all from the same menu? Like anything that affected your desktop was in the desktop menu.
I have to, every time I want to change my icons, I have to just I have to go to there's probably a faster way, but I finally figured out, I'm like, okay, I go to themes, and then I expand the window so I can find the little side thing, and then I click on that, and then I'm just like, dude, I just want to put my PC icon on my desktop. I know I'm weird, but you don't have to make it so hard.
Yeah, well, to get back to the actual report, this is from Taiwan's largest financial paper, the Commercial Times, had a report about a recent medical conference. Once again, I did not write this, so this is regurgitating from Mark's article. But the paper was reporting on comments made by Barry Lamb, the founder and chairman of PC contract manufacturer Quanta. Have you heard of Quanta?
Quantum computing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And the chairman and executive of Acer. They did not directly attribute the date to either executive, but they were kind of talking about AI PCs and all that stuff that Intel has been kind of talking about recently with Meteor Lake. So it seems like I would, and I think everybody here, who follows us knows, Brad has a very high level threshold for rumors. We don't really cover rumors too much. Sometimes, I mean, we'll talk about it here on the show, but for the website, he has, Elena, you can agree, right? He's got a high threshold for what he'll put up as a rumor on the website, right?
Extremely.
Yeah. So this
I have the same policy on my channel, where on the main channel, a main video, I'm not going to address rumors. I'm not going to get into speculation about things. But on the podcast, we can talk about it because that's what that's designed for.
So this definitely passes Brad's smell test, as being okay, this is kind of credible sources. This isn't just insider knowledge kind of thing, but it sounds like maybe you have some insider knowledge.
Well, you said medical conference, and I said very large vendor that may have a vested interest in making sure that they have up-to-date clients.
Yeah, interesting. He does also say it's unclear the certainty of that June 2024 launch date. So who knows the actual time frame, but either way, I mean, the likelihood of Windows 12 coming next year is probably pretty high.
Yes,
right.
I would agree with that.
Would you agree?
Yeah, it's sooner than I expected, but I think it's going to arrive next year.
I mean, who knows? Because I also feel like even though the Windows 11 adoption has, I know they've released, I don't have it in front of me, but Microsoft has said the adoption rates and it's the fastest adopting OS or whatever. But I do feel like it was pretty controversial. I'm looking at the poll that Willis put in here about which OS, and 39% of the votes are still on Windows 10, including mine. So, but 51% are on Windows 11.
Yeah,
I
modern.
wouldn't call
Very
it.
modern.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call it controversial anymore. Like early on, like there was a lot of like what the hell kind of stuff. But yeah, like I mean, after many updates, like it is to, a fairly good spot. Even if I'm not willing to switch over to it quite yet on my work machine. 8% Linux. There we go. We got it. And then 3% Mac OS.
I did send out to all my subscribers to make sure to tune in. So
Okay.
I might be skewing your numbers slightly.
So
Okay, so is Schrodinger's Linux fan though? Like, if they haven't yet talked to everybody in chat about how Linux is superior, are they actually really there?
That's right.
true. I haven't been watching the chat, so yeah. So maybe somebody can tell me. But all right. To kind of wrap this up, to move on to the next thing, we have another super chat from VC Chester. Thank you so much, $5. Appreciate it. He said Windows 12 : you'll need to watch a 30-second ad to access display settings.
Don't give them ideas, man.
Yeah, I know, right?
Don't give them ideas.
I guarantee they've already had that idea though.
Well, which brings me to the question. All right, I guess there's two questions. What do you want to see out of a potential Windows 12? And then two, what do you think is going to be some of the big backlashes? Because no matter what, it's just something new. So, Windows 12 is going to come out. There's going to be some sort of backlash around something. So, Eleni, you first. What do you want to see in Windows 10 or 12? I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on 10.
I've actually said this like every version of Windows since XP.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for them to have like some kind of expert mode or like advanced mode where it just puts all of your settings right at your fingertips. You don't have to go digging. They're not trying to bury it on purpose so you don't accidentally nuke your computer. Like, I get why they're doing that because most of their users can mess things up. But I don't want to have to keep digging. I am tired of getting out my little virtual shovel and just being like, okay, where is this setting today? Oh, I have to go look that up on Google now because I can't remember and it's not intuitive. Okay, fine.
You just got to look it up on PCWorld.com.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, the most tangible thing is like, please just allow me to have just everything in my right-click menu again, like my context menu. I don't want to have to click so much. I don't want to have to relearn my muscle memory because there are other ways you can do things now, but I have a system. A lot of us literally grew up with Windows at this point, like since we were very small. So like that muscle memory is very embedded. What I think we're going to see is maybe, I'm not wishing for this, but I am wondering if they're going to do a take 2 on Cortana because of all the AI thing, right? Like you're just going to have like, can I assist you with this? It's going to be, the worst case scenario, it's going to be the worst of Cortana and Clippy combined. And I'm really hoping we're not going to go down that path. I'm hoping it's going to be a lot more polished, but I guess we're going to see.
Yeah. So I'm going to follow you up. Bad podcast host etiquette, but I want to follow you up because mine kind of mirror yours. I would say what I want to see is like a light version, like for handhelds specifically. I mean, there's been a lot of talk of like, I completely understand why a lot of people don't like Windows-based handhelds. I'm fine with it. Like I think it has its benefits compared to the Steam Deck. But if they could make some sort of light version of Windows 12 that runs on those kind of systems, I think that would be awesome. That's something I would love. Once again, it bifurcates the, what they need to do. So maybe that's too much of an asking. But yes, to piggyback on what I think we'll see, we're going to see a lot of AI. I think AI is just going to be plastered everywhere. Like it could be just like Microsoft now introducing Windows 12 powered by AI.
The writing's on the wall for that kind of stuff. I mean, you have so many different companies trying to leverage AI in so many different ways and trying to put it into every single product.
Everything.
And I mean, look at Bing. No one uses Bing, but Bing is powered by ChatGPT now. It's going to come to the OS. There's no question about that. It's just a matter of when and in what capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's the whole war about local, NPU performance versus cloud. There's still all that kind of stuff. But okay, so what is like top on your wish list of Windows 12?
Top on my wish list is something that I always want to see out of OSs, and it's something I've seen less and less of in the actual SKUs of it, because with Windows 7, you had Windows 7 Basic and Home, and then Professional, right? And then Professional was the stripped down, full access to group policy. You could join an Active Domain Directory server. You had full control over your OS. When Windows 8 came out, they really didn't have a stripped down professional version. Everything had the Metro UI and had recommended apps popping up and things like that. With Windows 10, we finally got that stripped down version again, but it's only available to enterprise. It was LTSB and LTSC. It was the long-term channel releases that didn't include Candy Crush and all of the other things in your start menu. And when I say, Microsoft is putting advertisements into Windows, people go, I've never seen that. Every app in your start menu was an advertisement. It was sold to the highest bidder. And there's no reason my professional video editing workstation needs Candy Crush, Facebook, and everything else.
Yeah, there's Instagram, LinkedIn. That's some of the first things on a clean OS install that I'm like, I got to go through and delete all of these.
Right, but the consumer versions of Windows 10 automatically reinstalled them sometimes. You couldn't actually cut the head off that snake. With Windows 11, they do sell a version that you can purchase as a consumer, but it's Windows 11 Professional for workstations. It's a separate SKU entirely from the professional SKU, which still has all those integrations and telemetry and everything else.
Well, and the difference between Windows 11 and Windows 11 Pro is so minute now.
There's almost nothing. Yeah. The only difference is a very legacy version. Like I mentioned, it's the ability to join an Active Directory server. That's the difference between Home and Professional. But Professional has all of the Home crap still attached to it. So to get an actual clean professional version of it, you need to go with the workstation version of Windows 11 Pro. I want a version for the advanced users and for people who actually want to take control of their systems and not have all of those recommended apps popping up all the time. There's been some question about why is Microsoft even selling Windows at this point, because it comes for free on every OEM box that you get.
Free, quote unquote free. Somebody's paying for it.
Someone's paying for it. Yeah. Whether it's Dell paying for it for like $8 a license or whatever, But it comes for free on every PC that you buy. And for years, they were doing the free upgrade from 7 to 10, where you could use any Windows SKU that you've had, and you'll get Windows 10 or Windows 11.
Elena, you wrote an article about those upgrades, right?
I did an article and a video for the channel.
So they recently finally stopped that program. But why is Windows even charging for the Home version if they're making their revenue through advertising anymore? I wouldn't mind paying for a professional version if it didn't have that ad revenue attached. So Microsoft, if you want to make $100 off me, here's $100, give me a clean license SKU. If you're gonna continue recommending ads, take your ad revenue, but stop taking money from me, because now we have a different transaction.
That is a good question. Why do we think that it's still the Home version is, we can get sales on like a PC World store or shop or which one's I can't remember.
The Home version is still $100 on Newegg.
Right?
If you want to buy a license, it's $100.
So why are they still selling it that way?
Because they can.
Yeah.
And I think also from a corporate standpoint, I don't think the shareholders would take too kindly to giving away your best product. If you have been charging for it and people are willing to pay, if you all of a sudden made it free, you're no longer bringing in that revenue stream, even though they're doubling up the revenue stream anyway by selling advertisements.
But also, if we look at overall Microsoft, it's got to be such a small portion of their actual revenue stream, right? Like, even for Windows, I'm sure Microsoft 365 is like...
Azure and 365, I think those have well eclipsed the Windows market at this point.
So, yeah... and maybe that's just a pie in the sky thinking of like, oh, hey, you're not making that much money off of it, but I'm sure somebody somewhere is just like, what are you talking about? We're still making money off of it.
Yeah, it's still a $3 billion, it's just not the $12 billion that we have on the other thing. So.
Yeah, unless they can subsidize it some other way, because we talk about like the ads, the preloaded kind of stuff, but I feel like AI is another way to get in there, right? Because like, if you get some sort of thing, it's like, oh, hey, Copilot is best used with Intel processors or something like that, that Intel maybe subsidizes some of that cost,
And I'm sure with the AI push, I believe Intel's December 14th announcement is including some hardware AI type things with it. They've Yeah.
Well, I do like VC Chester had a comment in here. He would like to see a Windows Grandma edition.
Yeah, Intel's December 14th, AI everywhere launch event.
AI's everywhere. Yeah. We need to see a Windows Grandma edition. The only icons in the desktop are a web browser, photos, and print. That would be pretty funny. I like that.
Well, that and WeatherBug and all that.
Speaking of chat, I think a friend of the show, Liquid R, makes a good point, which is that Apple gives away Mac OS. But I think the key difference is that Apple is making a lot of their money on hardware, right? Like you basically pay so much money up front, and then they're like, oh yeah, well, we want to keep you happy and we want to keep you in the ecosystem. So I can see why they would give it away, because you're not really downloading that and installing it on a Hackintosh anymore these days, right?
Right.
So Microsoft does have to make their money somehow, because they're not really in the hardware game. And they've got the Surface line, but that's almost, to me, that's more like a advertisement for their software, as opposed to it being a serious hardware push.
Well, and I was actually a Mac user and a hardcore Mac user when that switch happened, because you used to have to spend money on Mac OS.
That's
and then
it was never always free. You had to pay
Like
to upgrade.
Up until, what was it, 10.6, like Snow Leopard or something like that.
Yeah.
They were charging $50 or $30 for an upgrade license for their major revisions.
To be fair, though, I mean, $30 is still different than $100.
Yes.
I mean, that's why a lot of people jump on
or
those
$300
deals.
if you want an OEM license.
Yeah.
Or...
So I mean that's because you do cover a lot of those deals, and I would imagine there's a lot of traffic around. Oh, you can get a cheaper version of Windows.
But again, just two very different companies, right?
Yeah,
because again, like I was just talking to a friend. I don't know if longtime listeners will remember Leif Johnson. And he was talking about how
Macworld.com.
One of his friends recently bought a laptop for like $3,000, like a MacBook for $3,000, and I was like, wow, those specs are really underwhelming for $3,000, because that's what they get you, right? It's like a luxury experience, right? Where you pay $3,000 for something, and of course they're going to throw in like a buffing cloth and like other things.
No, the buffing cloth is still extra.
Yeah, actually.
Well, with Apple, yeah.
Well, you know what's funny now that you say that, though, because they target more of a luxury people, I would actually think the opposite would be true, that they could get away with a more expensive upgrade, because the people who are in that ecosystem are in there, and they'll be like, okay, whatever, I want the newest thing,
I think that comes down to they want you in the ecosystem, and the longer they can support you having the latest version. The last thing that they want to do is introduce a new feature and cut off a large section of their users to not be able to use it.
I don't know, they do that all the time.
Yeah, but it takes them 7 and 8 years to cut off older hardware.
Yeah.
And that encourages people to be like, oh, well, it is time for me to upgrade anyway.
Whereas Windows, suddenly requiring TPM 2.0 for Windows 11,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I do want to figure out a way to circle back to that idea, because I remember the whole security requirements for Windows 11 was definitely something that pushed back a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what the hell? I could run it on my hardware, but I don't have whatever support for it was TPM 2.0. What was the storage encryption BitLocker needed to be enabled, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that so things like that. I do wonder,
or you had to be able to support it, which means you had to have AES supported hardware or something like that. There was an instruction set on only like the newest 2 generations of CPUs that was required for it.
And so I do wonder, like, if them taking that risk actually did still pay off. I don't know how to quantify this, but hey, you know what? We pushed for it. There was a lot of pushback for us to change it, but we didn't. We held fast, and look how much more secure Windows 11 is versus 10.
Yeah, but just imagine how much legacy code they could have removed if with Windows 7 they didn't have backwards compatibility for 32-bit. There's been ample opportunity to actually rip off old Band-Aids before. Windows 7 still shipped with Program Manager as a GUI shell. It's in Windows System 32 directory. You can launch it and open Program Manager.
Well, we should move on because we've got a lot to talk about. But the last thing I definitely want to.
Was that upsetting for you, Adam? It's like, let's just move on.
Things used to be better back in my day.
That one hurt me on a deep psychological level.
Things used to be different. Crap! Now I forgot what I was going to say.
Be able to get a coffee for a nickel.
Yeah, I guarantee you. I used to love, as a kid, I used to love those oatmeal cream pies, and those things used to be like twice the size.
Yeah.
Than they are now.
And they were like 25 cents.
Yeah. Anyway,
back in my days, I didn't have a Steam Deck. I had a rock.
I had a rock.
And we were happy.
We were happy.
Can we make a T-shirt? Can we make a T-shirt out of that quote? I love it so much. Back in my day.
Back in my day, we didn't have a Steam Deck. We had a rock. You know what? You were really channeling Gordon here on that one. That's.
I miss Gordon too much.
It's
That's
the
like,
classic.
someone's got to fill it for Gordon.
Oh, okay. I remember. Last point. And somebody mentioned this earlier. I'm sorry, I don't remember who mentioned the chat. But ARM. They're talking about ARM support. I know that's something that you would be interested in.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that's coming?
I think it is. I think, again, the writing's kind of on the wall for that. We've seen Apple switch completely off of x86 and go over to, 100% ARM devices, Apple Silicon. But we're also seeing other manufacturers of CPUs. We've got Ampere and we've got Qualcomm that are both making huge ARM pushes. Qualcomm
specifically, yeah.
Trying to make pushes into consumer space. Qualcomm had an event just this last month where they announced, price and performance competitive CPUs that are supposed to be landing in laptops sometime in Q2 next year, which would kind of line up with a Windows 12 launch. So we've seen some Snapdragon products in Windows before. Samsung had some Exynos processors and so forth. But I think there might be a major ARM push coming. What
would that look like? It's could you get
in the past? It hasn't looked very good.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking like how could they change that with 12? What would be it? What would be the difference this time?
I think generic bootloader support, because in the past, with Windows for ARM, you've had to have specific builds, specific compilations of Windows to support whatever hardware you have. If you had a Raspberry Pi, they had specific versions of Windows that would only install on the Raspberry Pi. They had ones that were only support on Snapdragon hardware. There hasn't been a generic Windows installer that supports ARM hardware. So I think getting support to whatever bootloader you happen to run on that ARM device would be a major step forward.
Interesting. What do you think, Elena? You think ARM support Windows 12?
Yeah, I would be surprised not to see them return to that, because there's been the groundwork's been laid over the last several years. You can kind of see that. I would be really surprised. Of course, though, my first thought was maybe that original Surface RT.
The RT?
No.
Oh, gosh.
And then I was like, no, they wouldn't go that far back. Damn.
Yeah. If only. Yeah.
I've been wanting to give that thing more life. I have a soft spot for like trying to keep older technology alive. At this point, it probably is just too pokey, but
yeah.
Dude, the Surface Pro, I used the Surface Pro.
One day I can rescue.
Yeah. Okay. We should move on. Anything else on Windows 12 we want to cover? Say your piece before we move on.
I think I
hope it doesn't hurt as bad as the Windows 11 transition.
It probably will. I'm sure. We'll see it. Speaking of transitions, here's a really bad one into Intel calling out AMD about their horrible marketing practices.
Horrible, disingenuous marketing.
And then taking it back.
And then taking back. Yeah. So if you don't know, a presentation was discovered by it's NeoWin and Momomo_US over on Twitter. The presentation was titled
X. It's X now.
Whatever.
Oh, sorry.
Get out of here.
Let's call it Twitter.
Back in my day.
The title of the presentation was called Core Truths: How the Latest Technology is Not Always What It Seems. This is an internal presentation that Intel created, kind of calling out quote unquote snake oil for laptop CPU manufacturing. We just discovered actually this morning. I wanted to bring up the PDF to look at. That link is now 404'd,
Yes.
so you can't actually go see the presentation, but a lot of websites, including Mark Hochman over on PC World, reported on it. There's a link to it in the description if you want to see. It's mostly a marketing thing. They do make some interesting points about, hey, if you look at AMD Ryzen laptop parts, sometimes you get actual older generation hardware, even though it's titled newer generation. I will bring up something that we've talked about plenty of times, and during the Ryzen 7000 mobile event, we got this decoder wheel, and they were like, hey, we're kind of changing up the naming scheme, so there's a way to kind of configure your decoder wheel to be like, okay, if it starts with a 7, then it launches in 2023. The next digit is Ryzen 5, 7, 9, whatever, and then the third digit is the manufacturing processes. So Zen 4, Zen 3, Zen 2. And this is where Intel is kind of pointing out, like, hey, you could have a Ryzen 7000 mobile CPU that is actually still built on Zen 2 technology. Mm-hmm. So that is real. I mean, there are mobile parts based off that. I will say that is more of a lower tier or lower spec laptops that would have those kind of things. So you don't necessarily need the latest and greatest, and I think that's what AMD would counter and say. Yeah. But AMD is saying, or Intel is saying, oh, it's disingenuous because it's actually an old product that you're just rebranding to Ryzen 7000. I don't know. Did you look over the presentation?
I did.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
Unfortunately, I don't have the PDF, but they called out a couple of specific products, and Intel is saying that they're just rebadging old parts, and I think that's a little disingenuous just on the face of it, because they're calling out specifically the Ryzen 7520U.
Yep.
Which is based on Mondekio architecture, which is a kind of a Zen 2 Plus. It's a 6 nanometer Zen 2 based CPU. Zen 2 did launch in 2019, but it was a 7 nanometer part. And so while this isn't exactly, fourth gen, Zen 4 processor or whatever else, using a 6 nanometer part versus your 5 nanometer parts in the 7000 series, I don't hate that. I mean, and for Intel, to call out a rebadge when they literally just launched Raptor Lake refresh to the tune of a 1% improvement and called it a new product, like, come on.
Yeah.
I was waiting for someone on the show to say it, and I was going to say it, no one else did.
Yeah, I mean, listen, number one, we don't know. Mark has reached out to comment to Intel and AMD. As far as I know, we have not heard back for comment. But this seems to be a presentation that wasn't supposed to be widely circulated necessarily.
Yeah.
But in Mark's article, I'm going to read quote. Said Intel's site seems to be designed to provoke fear, uncertainty, and doubt in customers considering buying AMD Ryzen-powered hardware. So this seems to be a marketing thing, and of course they're going to trade jabs. But the tone of this, I think, is the thing that's like, oh, okay. I mean, there's a little more nuance in there. Like there are changes.
Yeah.
But also on the other end, I mean, even during our briefing when we had it, when they gave us the decoder wheel, a lot of people in there were like, like, what's wrong with just calling it the old numbering scheme? It
comes down to marketing. I mean,
all of this, yeah, right?
Everything comes down to marketing, and Intel's trying to call out, a little bit of hypocrisy in AMD's marketing, calling it a 7000 series part when you're based on an architecture in 2019. But then we had 14 nanometer with how many pluses at one point? But the title of this was Intel Core Truths, and like I said, they called out the 7520U as being based on Zen 2, which is a little disingenuous. It's 6 nanometer, not 7. Core truth number 2 is AMD's old architecture is hidden in plain sight. Again, not exactly true. This one I got a good chuckle out of. Core truth number 4, which is not all cores give you the best performance. And they're trying to say that if you just because you bought a 7000 series AMD chip doesn't mean you're going to get the same performance out of Zen 2 versus Zen 4. But the CPU that Intel is using to compare this to is the Raptor Lake 1335U, which is a 10-core, 12-threaded chip. So not all cores give you the best overall performance, and they're using a 2 performance core chip to make that comparison.
The idea of like, you're right, not all cores give you the best performance.
Case in point, your own silicon.
Yeah,
it's a.
This is what I pulled back on.
Yeah, it's a 10-core, 12-threaded chip with 2 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores with a max of 3.4 gigahertz.
Which is not a bad chip either.
It's not a bad chip.
Like there's
Not
I mean
a bad
there's
chip,
there's a
no.
reason to, you know, have these chips in these kind of devices. There's a reason why they kind of spec them out and say, okay, you know what, if you're getting a thin and light, you know, sub $100 laptop, you don't need 8 performance core, or, you know, like we're gonna designate that for something else.
And you know, to be perfectly clear, I have no problem with Intel's hybrid architecture with the performance cores and efficiency cores, but calling out, you know, well, some of these cores aren't made like the others, and then demonstrating where you're with your lowest performance core part, maybe not the best look.
Also, ignoring the fact that those efficiency cores are giving you the performance of older generation, like performance cores, equivalent, right? So it's very. I think the best thing that this thing highlights, personally for me, is just how freaking confusing this has gotten for the average consumer, that they even have the opportunity to sow this kind of, or attempt to sow this kind of mistrust in their competitor.
I mean, it's true. It's true. I mean, like, once again, when they gave us this decoding wheel, like, we were sitting there racking our heads.
Right?
Actually, Gordon did a video with Steve over at Gamers Nexus on his channel about the whole decoder wheel and all that kind of stuff. And it can be confusing. I mean, honestly, that's one of the reasons why we're here, right? Is to help inform the consumer and be like, okay, you know, here's what the parts do and what parts, you know, theoretically you should buy if you're looking for specific things. But I would not just relegate that to AMD.
Oh, no.
You know, that's also Intel. It's also NVIDIA too, with like laptop parts versus desktop parts. I mean, there's definitely.
They're keeping us employed. But.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen rebadging from both NVIDIA and AMD for graphics cards? You know, using an older part and calling it, you know, a new generation, but maybe a lower tier SKU. You know, we've seen that so many times.
Also, this is still when there is uncertainty about what the hell the naming scheme is going to be for Meteor Lake and onward. Yep. So, you know, like we know of certain marketing aspects, or, you know, how they're going to segment out in a certain way. You know, it's going to be ultra branding on some parts, or dropping the I. You know, like, we know some of those things, but we still don't have a clear picture of actually what the SKUs are going to look like.
They're dropping Core I branding, and Intel's trying to basically redo their entire product naming scheme, because it did get a little confusing. I mean, if you look at, you know, let's go back to the 1335U. The U is usually used for their lower voltage, lower performance parts. Right now, they're trying to go Intel Core, and then Intel Ultra. And that's going to replace the I, but they're still going to have sub-branding within that of Intel Core 3, Core 5, Core 7, Ultra 5, Ultra 7, Ultra 9. Those are all officially confirmed SKUs at this point.
Yeah.
So which is it? Go ahead.
I actually can see some benefit to that change, though, because, I mean, when you're talking to somebody about laptop parts, right, and you're like, okay, so that has a Core i5, you list the part number, but that's different from a Core i5 this, right? And they're like, I don't know what H versus U versus this, right?
Yeah, the 11900H versus a U versus an HK.
Right.
Versus, yeah.
And that was the kind of stuff that, like, us nerds had to memorize to help kind of regurgitate for other people. And I do see a benefit to saying like, okay, it's from the core line, and they're it's like cars, right? Where you're like, okay, I get it. Like this line means this, and then this line means this. So
it's the Corolla. Core is the Corolla.
Yeah. This is the Avalon. I don't know.
I'm not a car guy. Gordon needs to be here for the car analogy.
Just know coupe and sedan.
No,
that's all you need to know.
I think Corolla would be the core line.
Okay.
You'd have something like a Chevy Spark for your Intel line. Okay. So that's your baseline. And then your ultra line would be your Mercedes S-Class.
Okay. Well, well, but then you also throw in at the high end H versus HX. Sometimes HX are just socketed desktop parts, even though they're technically mobile.
Yep.
So
ultra plus.
Yeah. Well, once again, I feel like the thing is that in Intel coming out this strong, like they're in my mind, they're not coming at a place of like, oh, we figured this out. Look at these people over at AMD. They're making it so confusing. It's like, actually, I don't feel like you figured it out either.
Hey, Intel, if you give us one of these,
we
maybe
might.
That would help.
We might. So to me, it's just like, you know what? It is hard. I actually don't envy any of these companies to try to figure out this stuff because there's a lot of parts, there's a lot of segmentation, there's a lot of stuff. And now that it's a disaggregated architecture on the Intel side, it's just like, we don't even know. So there's going to be a lot of confusion no matter what. So
there is.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think if anything though, this does kind of signal two potential things. It could mean that, hey, Intel is feeling like maybe they're on their back foot coming into Meteor Lake, that they need to kind of like, come out here punching. Or, it means like, oh, hey, dang, AMD, and we'll talk about this a little bit in like global PC sales and stuff like that. Man, AMD is getting some market share. We need to go out there and, kind of counter and be like, hey, Intel's the way to go.
I feel like Intel is a bit on their back foot still. Like with Raptor Lake, they definitely came back up swinging and whatnot. But they didn't launch Meteor as 14th gen desktop. And so 14th gen was nothing more than Intel going, hey, we have a new part. It's only 2% faster. And I feel like this is all kind of still some of that same marketing spin of, well, AMD's putting out old parts too. Look at what they're doing. And that sucks. I wish Intel would have just kept 13th gen and, given us some new SKUs on that, so instead of a 13900, now we have a 13950 like they did for 10th gen. I don't think that would have been looked down on nearly as much as giving it a new, main segment or, new main product line with the same names and the same performance.
Yeah.
Well, I think to channel Gordon here, I mean, I think it's not unlike the conversation we were having about Windows 12 and maybe not contractual obligations, but at least perception, right? Like the vendors that they work with, like the OEMs, they need to make their systems seem new when they release.
Gotta have that new car smell.
Right.
Yeah. So it gives them the ability to say to their customers, like, yeah, we have 14th generation processors. Last year was 13th gen. So there's that sensation of progressing forward.
Yeah.
And then it's up to us to help educate people so they know what they're actually buying, unfortunately.
No, I think that's a great point. I mean, every product needs a refresh every year. It's just sometimes they hit and sometimes they don't. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot going on, and I mean, we're talking mainly in the laptop space. That's kind of what this slide deck was
right.
Aimed at. But yes, I mean, same thing for desktop. It was confusing in the same year that they're launching Meteor Lake and not calling that 14th gen, as far as we know. And then the desktop got 14th gen still, but it was not the same architecture.
But it's Raptor Lake refresh, and they were very clear that it was a refresh.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
They still called it 14.
Yeah, so so it's still yet to be seen on what's going to happen on the desktop side of things. Which is definitely not as like while there are a lot of desktop SKUs that Intel makes for sure, it's not as potentially confusing in my mind than probably a laptop. Correct. Theoretically.
Yeah,
we'll see,
there are. I I agree with that. I think the desktop SKUs are a lot better defined because you don't have, the low voltage parts. You don't have the overclocked parts. It's basically one lineup that just gets progressively better as you go on. There's not different target markets for
now. Who
right?
knows? Yeah, with if it's Meteor Lake or if it's Arrow Lake, it sounds like it'll be Arrow Lake on the desktop, but yeah. So yeah. Anyway. Core truths. Well, you can't go see the presentation now, but there are some slides out there. You're looking at WCCF Tech. We got some slides over on PC World. The internet never forgets, even though they pulled it down.
If anyone managed to get that PDF, reach out to us because I would like to see the full PDF.
Yeah, I bet Mark has it. I can't get a hold of him right now, but yeah. And
I do want to highlight a comment from the chat that I think is kind of funny.
Please.
Friend of the show, Escamonster says, I think this is what it means. I don't care. 4-core hell is in the past. Today feels like heaven in comparison.
I mean, that is the other thing. We are at a wealth of of cores and clock speeds on the CPU side. Like, I feel things are pretty damn good. Even like we talked about this last week with the Black Friday build, right? Where it's just like we've advanced things so much that like the software isn't really pushing the hardware right now, so you can just run on stuff that is not has to be like absolutely current, which is great for people who are more on a budget or have other priorities right now with the economy being what it is. Yeah, and I mean, even though I haven't been in this game that long, I do remember when we were essentially stuck in 4-core hell for a long time.
Oh yeah,
until Ryzen came out. So
hence back in my day.
Back when Windows had.
Joe's just turning into all this old foggy stuff.
Right? And Gordon's not even here. All right, let's move over to the PC analysis, shipments, manufacturing stuff. There was a couple of reports that I saw come across. I've got two specifically linked in the description. One of them's from Tech Power Up, talking about the forecasts from Canalys. How would you say this? Canalys. Okay.
Yeah, Canalys.
Yeah. Which is analyst, and then John Petty Research, which we talk about plenty of times. Each one's kind of focusing on different stuff, but I do feel like we're reaching the end of the year. We've seen a lot of talk of how this year went, but then also coming into 2024, what's it going to look like next year? And the best indication we have for next year is kind of looking at what happened this year. And by all accounts, it seems like this year. You know what? Actually, I'll just read John Petty's headline: "The post-COVID Black Death is over." That is the headline. So, I mean, it's kind of a strong headline, but it sounds like to me, hey, manufacturing is in a good spot. Supply chains in a good spot. Actual consumer spending, is kind of bounced back. The John Petty Research article starts off by talking about discrete GPUs. Or wait, no, it's not discrete. I think it's
overall GPUs.
Overall GPU. And while it was down slightly year over year, it is also they're pointing out the lowest year-to-year decline in half a decade, which we've talked about before when we were covering this. Like, hey, like sales, we had a spike during the pandemic for sure, but if you look at like the trend line, sales have definitely been down. So it looks to be steadying off a little bit there. The next major bullet point is market share shifted drastically due to iGPUs. And that's in obviously laptops. I do wonder if like handheld gaming devices are kind of helping that a little bit too.
I think those are definitely kind of bringing up that base level of that.
Which I mean would also indicate one of them is that the AMD's overall market share had increased by 2.4%. From last quarter, which I mean, it doesn't sound like a ton, but I mean, when the majority of it, at least according to this chart, is Intel based, like AMD being able to kind of punch in there, kind of what we were talking about in the last segment. AMD is definitely making some good strides in that iGPU space.
Absolutely.
And I mean, sometimes, especially, and I'm just talking about handheld devices, some of these offer Intel variants, but at the most part, handheld devices are AMD based products. RDNA 3. You got another.
I got another one.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Oh.
Neo Air.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've got that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that Intel based or AMD
Nope,
based?
this is the AMD one.
Oh, okay, yeah. See, I mean, most people right now would say, hey, iGPU for handheld gaming, for laptops, things like that. iGPU is, you're getting a lot more out of AMD-based systems, and it seems to be showing that they're actually, catching up. Quote, overall GPU unit shipments increased by 16.8% from last quarter. AMD's shipments increased by 36.6%. Intel's rose by 10.4%, and NVIDIA's rose by 25.2%. So, I mean, AMD, they have, a smaller slice of the market, but they are catching up.
Yeah.
So, I think...
I'm going to be really curious. I mean, not to get too far off topic, but to see what Meteor Lake ends up doing for these numbers now that Intel Alchemist is going to be integrated onto the die. With Intel going full tile based on including an actual GPU, which has been something that they've never done before. AMD since, what was it, 2018, they introduced their APUs with Vega graphics on board. They've kind of owned the high performance, low power, iGPU market. Really interesting.
On desktop and
laptop, handheld, doesn't matter. Really curious to see, number one, what kind of performance do we get out of Intel now that Alchemist has matured a couple of years and is being offered in, comparable power packages to what AMD has.
Yeah. No, for sure. Another bullet point in here from John Petty, desktop AIB, so discrete GPUs increased by 37.4% from last quarter. So, I mean, there's definitely more GPUs being sold. Let me see. Does he break it down? Oh, I don't think he actually breaks it down. Who is selling that? But yeah. So, I know a lot of people. I mean, we were talking about this, especially during the sales. Like now is a good time to build. I mean, sure, of course, there's always something, newer and flashier coming out. But I mean, we've seen some good sales. A lot of these parts are in a good spot performance-wise. Maybe not price for performance, but like people have some money. They're spending it. All indications are like, hey, things are improving, especially going into next year.
Yep.
Once again, a lot of this is going to be determined by global economic conditions, which we can never,
I just build PCs, man.
Yeah. But as of right now, it feels pretty good. Elena?
I was going to say, this is interesting to me because, I mean, when we reported, I think the last time we covered this was after the Q2 numbers came out or Q1 numbers came out, and it was down year over year. They had mentioned that, Q2 is usually pretty quiet, and then Q3 is when it starts picking up. Right. So we are seeing that. But I think to me, the more interesting number is that it's not just that we're seeing the typical Q3 number come back up, but let me see. What did I see in the report? But it's also so not only is Q3 up right now over Q2 of this year, I think it's like, what is it, 16.8%, but it's also double the 10-year average of 8.8%. So like it's not just we're doing the normal rebound, but we're doing a much more obvious rebound from the previous quarters, how I interpret that. And it makes me wonder, like kind of tied into the whole, like, okay, so we're seeing the market improve, and I'm wondering how much of that is, this is the entire PC market, so it's not just consumer. So I'm wondering how much the whole like push to return to office is also like driving some of this. Like, are people finally also just replacing things that they just held on to during the pandemic? As Gordon always says, like, the PC is always in danger of dying, right? So like this is a good trajectory, but I also wonder like how long this, like, are we going to level out next year, or if it's going to just keep going?
Well, the other question that I just thought of is this an indication of a bubble? Because obviously AI is driving a lot of sales, not necessarily on the consumer side, but, there's a lot of talk of NVIDIA being able to sell, GPUs for exorbitant prices because of this AI bubble. So I don't know how much is factored into that, but yeah. Well, speaking of looking forward, this Canalys forecast, the headline says global PC market set for 8% growth in 2024. So if we're looking at where we're rebounding now, and they're looking to the future, they're saying worldwide PC shipments are on the verge of recovery following 7 consecutive quarters of decline. So this is once again, the link is in the description if you want to see. They have some charts and breaking out some more numbers, but they have a nice chart kind of showing the shipments, and obviously we saw a huge spike in 2021. That was kind of the last big spike, and then
everyone was working from home. We got those tax rebates.
Yeah.
Hey, why not build a top flight gaming PC and write it off as a business expense?
Yeah, and then at least according to their kind of projections, we're going to see uptick in 2024 and even further of an uptick in 2025, and then it's actually going to dip back down again in 2026. I mean, this is a lot of financial stuff that's over my head, but I mean, if anything, once again, does it feel like the PC is in a good space right now? What do you think, Jeff?
I don't know if much of anything is in a good space to predict growth right now. I mean, you can call it inflation, you can call it whatever we want. We know that because of the pandemic, there were so many issues with manufacturing, with supply chains, with delivery, with logistics, that everything is just more expensive now. And I feel predicting growth in anything, are we talking simply a dollar's growth, or are we talking a shipment's growth? Or, what are we talking? By and large, everyone stayed home on Black Friday, but we still sold 7.7% more than the previous year.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, the people who have money are just spending more of it, but did we actually ship more products over Black Friday? And there's no indication but by what I'm reading on these charts, we're predicting a money growth, but not necessarily a shipment growth, which means even though people are making more money or spending more money, are we buying more graphics cards or are we buying fewer graphics cards?
Well, this is saying specifically shipments, though.
Okay.
So yeah. So I don't know, and they do point out the second paragraph. This from the analyst says, quote, the impact of AI on the PC industry will be profound. So, I do think a lot of this is forecasting, hey, AI is still a driving factor in the industry right now. And if it's any indication from Intel and AMD and NVIDIA, and Microsoft, I mean, everybody's talking about AI.
Yeah.
So this seems to be continuing forward into 2024, maybe even 2025.
Yeah.
We'll see. But
I'm not sure. I would love to say I'd love to see an 8% growth. I'd love to say the PC is in a very healthy spot right now. I will agree the PC is in a very healthy spot when we start seeing actual competition that starts driving prices back down. We see a lot of competition at the top end right now, especially in the $1,000 GPUs. You've got the 3080, the 4070 Ti, against the 7900 XTX and so forth. Where's the competition in the $200 space?
Well, I did see, man, I can't remember where that article was, but somebody had indicated an A750 was super cheap somewhere.
Yeah, it's like
180 over Black Friday. I think
yeah, that's right.
Still.
Which, I mean,
and that's the one that came with a copy of Assassin's Creed Mirage.
Oh yeah, that was in one of your builds.
Nice.
Yeah. So I mean, I do feel like there's competition in specific areas.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, it's not always at the lowest end.
Yeah. I'll call PC back into a good space when we start seeing competition back at the level where everyone can afford it, not just the top end.
Yeah. One thing that in the John Petty article, or the article about the research, one thing that Petty is quoted as talking about is that this bounce back, as some people are calling it, is reflecting just the channel kind of clearing, older stock too. So that's why I have more of a conservative emotional reaction to this news, just because, I mean, obviously, it's a good thing that things are on a decline. But until we start seeing more of a pickup and more innovation, maybe too strong a word, but just more attention spent across the entire spectrum, as you were saying, Jeff, right? To me, that's the real sign that things have returned more to normal, that we're starting to see, things actually back on, like picking back up, because I think we're kind of seeing still the vestiges of the effects of all that crap that happened over the last few years due to the pandemic and resulting logistical issues.
I mean, I was in Best Buy recently before Black Friday, just kind of poking around to see what they had physically inventory of for PC component kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, they had GPUs, but a lot of the GPUs were still old, like 6500 XT, things like that. So like, yeah, there's definitely some of that still laying around.
And not to bring up one of my more infamous videos, but what was the general consensus when the $300 graphics cards came out this last generation with the 7600 and the 4060? They sucked, and that's because the AMD and NVIDIA don't think they actually have to compete in that market right now. So they're overcharging for lower end silicon because there is no competition there right now.
Yeah. So side tangent.
I said they didn't suck. I didn't necessarily agree with the price, but if you only have $300, that was the point. Anyway, we've been there.
Yeah, we don't need.
Still playing with fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just touch the fire. Oh no, I'm gonna back away.
Nope, still hot. Okay.
Still hot.
So, side tangent. How excited are you for AI? What do you think AI is gonna look like in the future?
I think it has so many cool possibilities. I've actually done a couple of videos on AI, both getting Stable Diffusion up and running on your own hardware, and using Stable Diffusion as a tool for a graphic creative process. And so just speaking to like that aspect of it, like word-based image generation, I think it's a really powerful thing to be able to run in your home, just as an artist, as a starting point for something. Hey, I want to make this D&D campaign, and I want to create cool imagery so my my tabletop players can see what I'm talking about, not just imagine it. Right?
Who doesn't?
And so there's so many different use cases, from the personal aspect like that, but also from a professional aspect of like, hey, I want to create this logo or this this scenery, this advertising piece that has I need a lake over here and this over here and this over. Okay, now let's tweak that and create a final image based on that. I don't think AI is going to put anyone out of work, but I think if you're not using AI in your creative process, you are going to be left behind. And I know AI is a major push right now. The more tool sets come out, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's reinforcing programming, whether it's creating press releases, should you rely 100% on ChatGPT? No, you absolutely should not. It's interpreting what it thinks natural language should sound like, not necessarily what the words coming out of your mouth should be. But it can also give you a fantastic starting place on generating your own content. So I'm excited from that standpoint.
Well, what about the difference between local and cloud-based?
Local versus cloud.
Yeah.
Most of my channel is based around hosting all this stuff yourself. And so the problem is it's going to be very expensive if you want to host all of it yourself. The reason ChatGPT is so cool is because you can leverage the power of the cloud, stacks of graphics cards to train models on. Unless you're a paying customer of that, you have to train much smaller model sets that can actually fit in the memory of your local GPU. So while cloud-hosted things are always going to be more powerful, being able to train your own data sets, large language models as much as you can on a single graphics card, I think that's going to be very powerful for some businesses as well. So,
who was it? Tanmay, friend of the show, Tanmay in the chat says using large language models is like gargling and spitting.
You're not entirely wrong.
Okay. All right. So
cool potential.
Cool potential.
Useful.
And I mean, it is obviously kind of, I do feel like regardless of where the industry's at, the health of it. You know, like AI is going to be the next inflection point that people are excited to push, excited to get some sort of marketing out around, excited to maybe try to have products in place to take advantage of it. So
is it going to be the next paradigm shift, or is this a flash in the pan? That still has to bear out.
Yes.
Until there's things on the consumer end that actually change my life day to day. Siri was a great example of something that, while kind of a flash in the pan, some people still use it on a daily basis. And there's actually a use case for Siri or Cortana, on some personal level. But how useful are those tools, and will they actually impact someone's daily life and daily productivity?
Yeah,
that's going to be the staying power of AI if they're able to figure that out.
Yeah.
Do I get to weigh in on this?
No, please. Yeah,
I have a lot of thoughts,
go for it.
especially coming from a very likely biased position. I think that the technology could be really cool, but my biggest concern is like the everlasting impact on creative endeavors. Right? Like I have a lot of concerns about, like, because the people who build AI are going to influence how it handles creative process, right? Like it's gonna impact how it generates text from nothing. It's gonna impact how it creates images from nothing, so to speak. But it's not really from nothing. It's basing it on works that were created by humans, right? And the quote that sticks with me is the New Yorker article about Jensen. And he says something like, I think I have it up here. It says, AI will come for the fiction, AI will come for the fiction writers first. And so for me, that's really concerning, because it's like we spend so much time with people in creative pursuits. It's not just fiction writing. It is the people who write the scripts for shows. It's the movies, like all of these things that we take for granted for entertainment. Like maybe one day we'll get to a point where ChatGPT will just create a novel for you because you're like, I want to see these elements go. But I think we lose something intrinsic to the human experience, because to me that's what art is. It is about people communicating with other people through time and space, right? Like I can pick up a book from many cultures from 300 years ago, and there's going to be some fundamental universal human truth in that, right? And like if that's being generated by a non-human, like does it still retain that significance? And does it devalue in a way the creative process of being able to hone your thoughts and then create something from that, like from scratch? Because you're not just taking other people's works and like mixing it up and then putting it back out. Like we're all influenced by each other. Like we talk about that all the time in the creative process, but it's, to me, it's different. And like I'm sad by the thought that someday entertainment media, or like even just me writing an article for PC World, is going to have the same value as like furniture, right? We're like, we buy stuff from IKEA all the time, right? It's mass produced. We don't really put a lot of thought into it, but it's not the same as like somebody who's honed like
handcrafted
wood, like their woodworking skills, and you can see like the joints just perfectly go together, and like the carvings and like that beauty in it, right? Like, but most of us can't afford that. Most of us can't get to appreciate that beauty. And like to me, it's like, are we actually putting these things more into the hands of the masses, or are we actually devaluing something like wonderful about the human experience? Like I have so many thoughts, and I think sometimes when I talk to my friends who are engineers, they don't see it from that perspective because they are so focused on the technology aspect of it, which again is very cool.
Exciting.
Which is exciting and can have some amazing applications, but there are some parts of it that I feel like could be collateral damage. And I'm like, so I'm still a little like bearish on it because of like where I come from, you know?
I mean, once again, just speaking on AI in general, like I definitely think there are people who are just like, oh, so excited and just like barrel towards the future without any sort of thought, and and then some people be like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Just think about it a little bit.
I think you pointed out one of the great dangers of AI, and that's if it's creating a work, all it is an amalgamation of whatever data it's been trained on. It's not actually creating a new work. It's it's always going to be based on whatever it knows. It's not going to come up with new characters, new scripts, new scenarios, new whatever else.
Not yet.
Perspective.
Not yet.
Not yet. I don't think ever. If you can create a new name, but you're slapping it on an old scenario, that's not inherently a creative thing.
Humans can do that too, though.
Humans can do that too, and
Which does not make it better either.
and bad authors often
lie.
do. but good authors, create new worlds, new scenarios, new situations, and I think you hit it right on the head there, Elena. That that is definitely in danger of being lost if we start relying on AI to create all those new works.
I just in my head I had the idea, and not to throw shade at Stephen King, but I was just like, what if Stephen King were to take all his previous work, because he does have a lot of previous work, but also a lot of it is has themes that are very similar, and then he uses that to train a language model and spit out new scripts. I actually don't know if it'd be that different, but
It's very true.
So
I mean, it could kill ghostwriters, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Hopefully,
yeah. No, good point. Yeah, I mean, and I've been reading the new biography from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Big Arnold fan. But yeah, and so imagine hey, you know what? ChatGPT, write an article about write a book about my history. So it's all public knowledge, but it's all about you. And so maybe it's a way to get biographies easier. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff Once again, we're taking it back to the hardware side of it. It is still a new area that people are excited about with local AI performance is going to get better and better, and I think we're going to see leaps and bounds in that space. Whether it's something you use or not, is still and how it can be implemented still is left up for debate. But lots to talk about there. I'm sure AI is going to be a hot topic in 2024. This isn't our predictions episode, but I would throw that as a prediction that AI is going to be talked about a lot. All right, so we've been only going 84 minutes. Okay, it's not too bad. We got time. We got time to hit some Q&A. If you are watching right now, get us in the chat at PC World. It's a little bit easier for us to see it. Get some questions in there. If you're watching or listening to it later, there's a link over to our Discord in the description that has a channel that you can put questions in. We had an email, but I don't think we check that email anymore, so I'm not even going to bring it up.
I do, but we
You
really
do?
haven't gotten
Oh, okay.
much. And for the people who I don't see it for months, I am sorry. But usually it's by the time I get to it, it's I would like to upgrade my laptop. And I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry. That was 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Probably read a choice.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah. So we do have some questions that came in on Super Chats that I wanted to get back to make sure that I didn't miss anybody. Well, this isn't a question, but a Super Chat from friend of the show, Coffee, gave us $5 Canadian. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Those count too.
Yeah, those count too. Somebody counts those in quotes. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet as long as it efficiently runs my game in Excel. The name does not matter. I think they were back when we were talking about the Quartz stuff.
Integrated graphics.
Yeah,
I think
integrated graphics. Yeah,
when that one came in.
We got a super sticker from friend of the show, Calvin, $5. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The sticker is a bouncing thing. That's
Looks like a pear.
I don't know what they're laughing at, but thank you. Friend of the show, Skeet Sayer, does have a question. Gave us $5 Canadian. Said, will Phoenix, AMD's upcoming APU coming in 2024, what chance does Intel have with Phoenix coming out? What do you think?
I have been very critical of AMD for a while, of the level of APU that they put out, specifically on the graphics side of things. AMD, for a long time, they would have their Vega architecture, which, love it or hate it, power efficiency wise, good architecture, was very performant as long as you had Vega 56, Vega 64 based GPUs. When they put it into APUs, they put 8 compute cores into there, which wasn't highly, I mean, it did okay for the tasks that it was meant to do in a low power application.
For the price.
But there was this really weird SKU that Intel put out in collaboration with AMD called the 8809G, where AMD put 20 and 24 compute units into a chip and had GTX 1070 level performance almost in a single package. why AMD has not done that with a single one of their APU SKUs. And instead they still rely on either discrete graphics, so they'll pair it with a mobile RX chip and one of their AMD Ryzens, or just a Ryzen APU with 8 compute units. Why? The market is right there for the taking. If they would just
it has to be some sort of segmentation business.
It has to be,
I'm sure. Yeah.
But with Intel now coming out with Alchemist on their Meteor Lake dies and threatening 32 and 64 compute unit chips,
which we will have to see how that pans out.
Right.
But,
in collaboration with their 8 and 12 core CPUs. AMD's got to deliver on something more than 8 or 12 compute unit.
Which they can.
They can.
But, well,
they
once again,
can.
yeah. So maybe that's the thing, is that they haven't had to yet.
And that totally could be.
Who knows?
Yeah, the competition's not there. So.
Yeah. I mean, from a handheld enthusiast perspective, I mean, I'm excited about Phoenix,
right?
For sure, in a lot of ways.
But are we going to get 12 compute units again, or can we get 20? Can we get 24? Yeah. Can we get something with some actual horsepower behind it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to keep this on the handheld train, but Valve was talking about Steam Deck and looking at like, oh hey, we're not ready to put out a Steam Deck 2 or whatever we call it yet, because we're not seeing any large gains in power for performance kind of stuff, because power is one thing, maybe bumping out up CUs for sure, but also it needs to be efficient. They have their own target projections of efficiency and battery life and heat output and things like that. So at least to Valve, who I mean is the major player in handheld gaming devices right now, is not seeing the benefit of Phoenix. Is essentially what they're saying without saying it.
Yeah,
right?
I fully agree with that opinion as well. Not with Valve's opinion, but with what you just said. There's devices like this. This is running a 6800U and a 680M, which is still an 8 compute unit based RDNA 2. There's the RDNA 3 models with the 780M with 12 compute units. There's the ROG Ally running the Z1, which is also a 12 compute unit. While they are faster than the Steam Deck, they also draw twice as much power. They have 30 and 35 watt TDPs versus 15 watt TDPs. So is Phoenix going to improve on that to a point where it's actually worth upgrading to a Steam Deck 2, redoing the APU? Valve says no. And maybe it's for the same reason that I just laid out.
Yeah.
That maybe it's going to be another 8 to 12 compute unit CPU or APU with no more horsepower to give.
Who knows? Are you excited about Phoenix? Have you looked into the potential?
Not as deeply as I would have liked to. In general, I am always excited for like more movement in the APU space, because I think it's a really good option for people who don't want to fuss with the whole discrete graphics card. They just really want something that does web browsing, but maybe will play some lightweight games here and there. It's a more budget friendly option. I've always been kind of afraid that it will go away. You know what I mean? That like its better application is for things like dedicated gaming console type applications or use cases. And so for me, it's like maybe it's a little too not having my bar set high enough. Like Jeff's like, no, I have standards. Like I want things out of it. I'm just like, does it still exist? Oh, I'm good. I'm really good.
Which, to be fair, I mean, it is good.
Yeah.
I mean, the Steam Deck is awesome.
Yes.
You can get good performance, but yeah, I mean, it seems to be stalled out a little bit. Maybe we're in the 4-core hell of APU performance. No.
I don't know.
No.
I don't think it's quite that, but there is something to that. Like, because I see what AMD is capable of doing in mobile packages on their discrete side of things. I know that architecture, RDNA 2, RDNA 3, and then you see the APUs they're coming out with, and it's like, oh, it's literally the same Vega performance that we've seen for the last 5 years almost.
Yep.
We did talk about earlier, though, that, there just hasn't been much attention paid to that segment, like below what, $300 on like both CPU and GPU side.
Yeah.
$250. So I think this is, I feel like, I think you have very valid criticisms, but I also think it's kind of an unfortunate another part of that aspect or that trend we've seen, where it's just getting kind of ignored because people are still buying them, or like people are using them for pre-builts, right? So you're not really getting complaints, and they're selling. So why devote the resources there when there's so much? Brewer2, friend of the show, Brewer2 mentioned in chat. They said, I want an APU for a mini PC, and that's absolutely true. But I feel like we'll have to wait to see that come to fruition.
Once again, there's still a lot to be known about Meteor Lake and tested. I'm excited. Hopefully that shakes up the handheld market even more, in other markets, laptops for sure. But we will see. I do believe there's going to be some teething pains, I'm sure, around Meteor Lake, and graphics performance particularly. There's one more super chat that I did not get to. And his friend of the show, VC Jester, gave us another $5. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Said, I blame slow PC sales on Elena's article on how people can just upgrade their storage to an SSD instead of buying a new PC. Elena, it's your fault.
It's all your fault.
Yeah, it's all your fault.
I mean,
quit writing articles. We're gonna have to tell.
Are you trying to get me fired?
Yeah,
that's harsh.
You need Elena.
Yeah.
You need Elena.
All right, we have some questions, some rapid fire questions for Jeff specifically over on our Discord, or I'm gonna assume they're for Jeff specifically because this is not something that I know. CosMC, friend of the show, CosMC asks, thoughts on Naples EPYC for Home Lab. EPYC 7551P 32 core goes for $150 to $250 on eBay.
The motherboards are still exorbitantly expensive for an SP3 based motherboard. You're still looking $275, I think, for like a Supermicro 111. The motherboards are insanely high priced. The other thing is the 7551P 32 core. I've got a 7601 in mine, which is a very similar part. You can get more performance out of a modern 12-core CPU, sometimes even an 8-core CPU. So investing into an enterprise platform, even though it's got 32 cores, you have to consider it's only got a clock of 2 gigahertz versus is a 7600 Ryzen going to give you, the same multi-threaded performance. Oh, and also like 6 times the single-threaded performance. And there is something to be said for buying modern parts, not always going with the used enterprise gear. And we've seen so many spikes in CPU performance over the last 2 and 3 generations that Naples is kind of hard to go back to.
Well, but aside from performance, what benefits would Naples have? PCIe lanes?
Naples would have benefit of PCIe lanes. There's 128 PCI Express lanes. There's also 8 channels of DDR4. So if you need memory bandwidth dependent applications, then it's definitely a solid platform to go with. Also if you need 512 gigs of memory, you can throw that into a Naples system. So there are still some applications where it does make sense over, more modern consumer parts. But if you're going just from the standpoint of, I want something that, has a whole lot of cores, are you actually going to be utilizing those cores, or are you going to be waiting on those cores to do the same thing that a modern CPU could?
So it's dependent on your workloads?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kaz has another question. Why Docker, and why should people have started it using 2 years ago?
I don't like Docker.
Oh.
I don't use Docker. There's a whole debate, Docker versus virtual machines. They both have their use cases. Docker, in most cases, is you want to spin up multiple machines, but all based on the same operating system. So you'll have a Linux kernel, and then you spin up a VM that's kind of a virtualized kernel. Uses the same core of the OS, but it's in its own sandboxed container. The problem with that is if you update the kernel on the host machine, then your Docker can often break. You have to update everything all at the same time. It's not actually its own sandbox. It's still dependent on host features and host software versions, versus if you have enough resources to do a full-on virtual machine that is completely virtualized, it's completely separate of the host. I always say if you have enough resources to do a VM, I prefer doing a VM because you have more control of both the host and the guest OS at the same time.
Elena, I'm not trying to keep you out of the conversation. Jump in if you have any thoughts too.
No, I'm talking with people in chat.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, everyone watching the screen like, what is she doing?
No, that's fine. Any plans on updating your Stable Diffusion video for 2024 or a video on an entry-level Stable Diffusion build? Actually, I would be interested on the entry-level
Stable
build.
Diffusion
Yeah.
build. I might revisit it, especially with some more. What is basically like the GitHub but for models. Gosh, I'm trying to rubber ducky something. Like there's a
Rubber ducky.
Yeah, there's a duck site. I'm forgetting. I'm sorry.
DuckDuckGo.
That has a whole bunch of models for download. I did use them in the previous video for showing how to model your own face.
My face?
Well, I could probably.
My model is on the internet.
I could probably do
Oh,
yours.
that would actually be fun.
That would be amazing. I want to see that.
Actually, no.
yes.
Let me show you an application. We actually do have ourselves
the,
modeled
no.
Oh yeah, no, you showed me that. Yeah.
Emoji.
from Computex. So my model is on the internet somewhere, actually.
But no, so I did two different videos on Stable Diffusion. One was talking about the ethics of creating something based on derivative works, and then another one doing a tutorial on how to do it yourself. And I showed you how to model your own face and give it prompts, and it'll spit out you as a character in whatever image it's generating. That might be kind of fun to revisit eventually. I will say those videos weren't terribly popular on the channel, and so how much resources do I want to devote to there? Because I'm still just one guy doing one thing, and
You need to staff up.
I do need to staff up.
Yeah.
I'm sure, based on announcements probably late this year, early next year, as far as what AI is going to be the new buzzword, there will probably be something, that lands in my home lab based around that. So.
Okay. We got a couple Intel Battlemage questions. A friend of the show, Liquid R, asked, do you think Intel will be able to launch Battlemage before NVIDIA and AMD kick off their next-gen cards? I mean, first, I should ask, do you have any insider knowledge?
I do not have any insider knowledge per se. How's that? I'm not under an NDA with anything. That said, Intel graphics are in a really weird spot. They seem to be reorganizing the department about every 3 months, and while they are definitely highly focused on graphics, it seems to be more from an AI standpoint, if I had an opinion on it, which makes a whole lot of sense. But you can also see they're still heavily devoting resources over to driver development for Alchemist. I mean, we've been seeing 50% improvement gains about every 2 months based on new driver sets that come out, and better optimizations for DX11, DX12, Vulkan. So I think Intel as a whole is still very much behind developing. Will it launch before next gen NVIDIA AMD? I have no idea when Battlemage will launch. Is it going away? I don't think so, but are they going to slough it off as an AI product first and a graphics product second, or will we actually see some gaming cards out of it? That's a great question.
I mean, we do know that a lot of work is being done on Meteor Lake.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I think even though it's not as exciting as discrete cards, a lot of us are here and excited for, I think if there is one indication, at least to me, that even though it's been slow on talking about Battlemage and that kind of thing, they're still doing that back end work, not only to get Alchemist to a good spot, which they have.
Yeah.
They do have a track record.
Yeah.
But they're also applying this now to mobile platform, which is brand new for them. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of headaches around there, but it seems like, it's not, once again, like you said, I don't think it's going away. They obviously need to support it in Meteor Lake, whether they do a discrete card or not. I mean, the graphics division is here.
Speaking
and
of,
they are doing work.
Speaking of competition in the low end space, I mean, Intel launched the A770 for, what was it, $350, the A750 for like $280 or something like that. While the initial reviews weren't overly positive, there's been a number of re-reviews and whatnot of it that it's definitely hanging there and actually straight up beating a lot of the $300 and $400 cards that are out there right now. I think if more people would turn and actually buy it and give it a shot, we might see some competition in that space. And Battle Mage launching, if they can get a product out for $199, $299, and $399, maybe that'll force AMD and NVIDIA to actually compete down there again. So
That'd be nice.
yeah.
Actually, and we did have that question recently too about what can Intel do. I don't remember the exact wordage, but the idea is, do you think they need to come out with a Halo product and like try to go to 4090 or 5090 or whatever that is?
I don't think they need a Halo product. I think they need to find a hole in the market and destroy it.
Which right now is probably low end, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's low end right now.
He's formerly known as mainstream. Beginning mainstream.
Yeah, right.
Back in my day.
Back in my day.
My day, $200 to $250 for a graphics card was,
Yeah.
What normal people started with.
Yeah, right. All right. Okay, we kind of. Yeah.
There was one in the chat earlier.
Please.
Ivan Remenzanov asked, do consultants in Micro Center have this decoder wheel that you have on your desk, Adam, to help buyers? We don't have a Micro Center around us, but
Neither do you, Jeff.
I'm even further away than you guys are.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts.
My closest is Denver.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, yeah.
Do we have the Micro Center? Oh, no, not Micro
Central
Center.
Computer?
Central Computer. Do you know if they have it?
Nope.
I doubt it. I doubt they.
We had a Fry's.
Yes,
We had a Fry's.
We also had Fry's.
Yeah, we
here
had
too.
Fry's too. Yeah, but did they have decoder wheels? No, I doubt it. No. Because I mean, and I was thinking about this too. I mean, like the wheel is one thing, and that's kind of the way they gave it to us to kind of visualize it. But actually, since then, I've seen the slides that have the vertical stacking. So it's like, oh, okay, you see the options on the wheel, and instead of the wheel, it's a vertical options to kind of slide up and down. So I actually think that's kind of a better way to do it. I think that AMD has a website on that or something. So yeah, no, this is, and I saw somebody earlier say this is a collector's item. Yes, we actually have a couple.
I do love that you have this.
All right. Question here from Liquid R, friend of the show, Liquid R. Any thoughts on Microsoft announced paid security updates for Windows 10 after 2025?
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, I did. Are you familiar with this announcement?
Microsoft always offers paid security updates, but you can't afford them.
Oh, this is for enterprise.
When we talk about paid security updates, we talk about like ATMs with embedded products,
okay.
where Wells Fargo isn't going to go out and update every single ATM. They'd rather pay Microsoft to keep 2015 hardware running for another 5 or 6 years because it doesn't matter to them.
I knew that part. I thought that because of this, I thought that was like talking about having it open to consumers as an option.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that would ever be
No,
a
that makes
thing.
sense to me.
Yeah.
Like I think that's too small fry, honestly, for them. Especially because can you imagine like dealing with like the number of calls you'd get from people versus like just dealing with the centralized IT department for a large client, you know what I
Right.
mean?
With like
done
3
customer
versions of
service.
hardware and that's all they ever deployed versus
Yeah,
whatever the
exactly.
heck laptop you're running right now or desktop that you cobbled together. Yeah. Yeah, no, it will never be a consumer option to keep an old OS and an old kernel alive.
We have a question from Fonzel. I'm going to call it Fonzel over on Discord. Will there be
Hey.
yeah, maybe it's Fonzie. I don't know. Will there ever be a consumer-friendly NVMe RAID option on motherboards? How much do you mess with RAID?
I mess with the RAID quite a bit.
Motherboard-based RAID.
Motherboard-based RAID? No, because I think hardware RAID is on its deathbed and has been for a long time. Software RAID is where just about everyone is going with software-defined storage pools, ZFS, ButterFS, whatever it might be. Tying in your stability to whatever platform you happen to be running on is a very old school way of thinking. And so, ZFS coming to every operating system, I think, is kind of the next step forward.
Oh, breaking news.
Breaking news.
Liquid R
Yes.
says that his question is actually for consumers, and it's based off of a Verge article that I'm going to read right now.
Can you send a link in
And Slack, yeah, one
in
second.
Slack, yeah. Here it is.
Micro-
Oh no, okay, yeah, 2 hours ago, Microsoft to offer consumers paid Windows 10 security updates for the first time. Microsoft.
Wait, is this them acknowledging indirectly how many people have not adapted or upgraded to Windows 11?
Yeah.
39% by your numbers earlier.
Yeah. So yeah, the subhead is Microsoft isn't extending the support period for Windows 10, so consumers will need to pay for key security patches or upgrade their OS.
A new extended support update program for Windows 10 will launch after support ends in October 2025.
Interesting. Is there any sort of pricing on this? Sorry, we're literally going over this in real time. This is interesting. Yeah, but I feel like, okay.
Like I said, Microsoft has offered this before to large enterprise customers. And when I say large, I mean to the tunes of millions of dollars to support versions specifically for ATM hardware or medical imaging or things like that.
Well, I'm thinking more about like when Spectre Meltdown rolled around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was in not only Microsoft's interest to get ahead of it, but also vendors. And I mean, we saw a lot of vendors even like being like, oh, well, we're only really going to support, past a certain point. And then even with that feedback, they were like, all right, you know what, we're gonna patch some really older systems.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if Microsoft were to be like, oh, we have a Spectre Meltdown 2. Oh, did you pay for the ESW or ESU? Sorry, you don't get the mitigation for that.
Yeah.
Well, I think if it's big enough, they're going to do it because they did that. The Verge article actually reminded me of this, that they did that for Windows XP in 2017, right?
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Okay, that's what it was.
The greater good.
Yeah.
Good, I guess.
So okay. Yeah. So, but I do wonder. I mean, somewhere they probably have some sort of internal flow chart of like, okay, how big is it? How bad is it?
Yeah.
where is that threshold for people who paid for it versus everybody gets it?
Okay, so if we have
decoder wheel, yeah. Microsoft needs a decoder wheel.
They're going to announce pricing later, and I actually wonder if they're going to price it just enough so it's actually a poison pill, right? Where it's like, right?
That's my
did you
first
say that?
inclination.
Did you say that earlier? Sorry,
I did not.
There's like
but
a
no.
million sirens going off in the background here, and I'm like, oh my god.
Oh, they're coming for you, Elena. Watch out.
I was trying to think of exactly how I wanted to phrase it, and you said poison pill, and I went, yes.
Right? Because it's like, if you price it just enough, like just a little bit too expensive, like the people who are just that die hard, they'll probably pay it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, I'll take your money. But then it kind of forces most everyone else onto the operating systems that you want them on.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, but I mean, is that enough? Like, I'm wondering for me, right? Like, me personally on my work machine, once again, Windows 10, what would be a threshold? I'm not against it going to Windows 11. It's just like, I have no reason to, I guess. If the reason was you don't get the security patches, I guess that would be,
yeah,
it would be like, okay, you know what, might as well, I don't know. Interesting. Well, but I guess the other question is too, there's plenty of people out there who are probably running Windows 10 that have no idea that end of life is happening, right?
Yeah,
right.
We'll be covering that.
Yeah. So No, we need to get you some beer. It's true.
Yes.
This has been a beerless show.
He informed me that they do have a keg here, but
Yeah.
they blew it last week.
Yeah, and we do have some bottles, but the selection is not great.
Yeah. I mean, is it really a crossover though?
Yeah,
With Craft
I'm
Martini
sorry.
if we have no beer?
I totally-
Like, is it not? It feels like not official now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, we're gonna have plenty of beer
Coffee
tomorrow.
only gets you so far,
Yeah,
in
we're
my good
gonna have plenty of
graces.
beer tomorrow. Okay. Well, we will see when the news develops. We will come live. I mean, I think the next news hit would be when pricing is revealed. So we'll talk about it, and I'm sure Brad has some ideas, and maybe we can get Gordon's ideas too. I'm curious to see what he says. A couple more here. Ivan Romanazov, friend of the show, asks, PCIe 5 in gaming utilizes only about 4 lanes. With PCIe 6, we will need only 2 lanes. Can you use all these excess lanes to revive SLI/Crossfire, or is multi-GPU PCs dead for good? Number one, actually, I will use this as a point to say Asus officially announced that product. I think it's a 4060 or 4060 Ti that has the NVMe slot on the back of the GPU.
Yeah.
not to enable direct storage or anything specific like that. It's just like, hey, this 4060 only uses half of the lanes, so we might as well use those other lanes for this NVMe slot, which just makes it another mounting point. And maybe you have a motherboard that only supports one, you want to add a second or something like that. So I'm actually kind of seeing this. I know it's not related to their question, but like I do think that is a good question of like, I mean, we don't need PCIe 6 for gaming GPUs right now.
When it comes to multi GPU, there were a number of facets that killed it, and it wasn't necessarily bandwidth alone. It was also latency. When you look at the memory on a GPU, and you can even we've looked at laptops with soldered on memory before in relation to bandwidth and latency to the CPU. And the closer you can get the memory chips to the CPU, the faster you can go, which is why we have laptops with 7800 DDR5. But if you have a socketed DIMM, you're limited to like 52 or 5600. It's because it's so far apart, you can't maintain that signal integrity and the same amount of bandwidth, and you have higher latency with DIMM slots versus soldered memory. Same thing on a GPU. GPU memory is placed very, very close to the GPU silicon to maximize its throughput and minimize its latency. Even though PCI Express 5 and PCI Express 6 have so much more bandwidth available, in theory, you could probably reintroduce some multi-GPU systems, but I think it's going to be the latency that's going to be the ultimate killer of not making that a viable solution.
I mean, also I feel like we've definitely talked about it a lot the past couple of months, but the whole idea of optimization on PC ports is one thing. If you throw in trying to optimize for multi-GPU setups, I think that's probably asking a little too much of developers.
Yeah.
I will say the only use case that I've looked into in recent memory about multi-GPU systems is for DaVinci Resolve, because actually it does have some nice gains for multi-GPU setups. I was looking at like a Puget Systems testing kind of thing like that, but even then I was like, I don't need 2 GPUs in my system. So
sure you do.
Yeah, not yet.
I have a server with a pair of RTX A5000s in it.
Oh, look at you, fancy boy. fancy. But all right, so the other end of it, then we're talking about multiple slots. What about multiple GPUs in the same slot?
Yeah,
because then that mitigates some of the latency stuff, right?
I don't think it does, because even if you have a board with multiple GPUs on it, how do you share that bandwidth between them? Glue, right.
Adam getting technical here.
Well, if GPUs stop going with monolithic dies and instead go to a chiplet-style design with an I/O die and shared memory bandwidth and shared memory buses and whatnot, in theory, yeah, like, would that architecture work? You're starting to stretch my knowledge of silicon, but I mean, that's one of the things that Infinity Fabric on AMD has solved is
Glue.
Shared caching between different chiplets, and pooling your resources into a single centralized location. Maybe, but is there a market for that, or would we actually just see chiplet-based GPUs that have all of the benefits of multi-GPU with none of the drawbacks?
Well, then what about that third option that I was talking about with the NVMe using the rest of those lanes? Do you like this idea of like, hey, you know what? This is another way to add storage, or I don't know if maybe there's another use for it, but right now that's the option.
I do love that option of even just, hey, here's a GPU that's on an x16 slot because, well, we've always used x16 on PCI Express, but we're only using the bandwidth of 8 lanes. Tell you what, here's 2 NVMe slots that you can add more storage in. It doesn't benefit the GPU at all, but the end user gets 2 more NVMe slots, where otherwise, the physical port is just taken up. So,
Elena, have you seen that card that I'm referencing?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But I did hear you mention it.
Yeah. Do you like that idea of an easy potential upgrade? So, well, I guess the second question would be, because it does have just a small price premium. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, so don't quote me. But I feel like they were offering that variant for $30 more for the idea of having, an extra slot available to you, NVMe slot.
for me, it's always one of those things where like options are good, but it's always boils down to what your use case is, like if you need it or not. And so it becomes that thing where it's like, okay, like it's great that they're offering it, but if it doesn't sell well, then they're probably gonna not offer it. But
Well, yeah. Well, I'm thinking like, you know, somebody got a lower end motherboard that maybe only has one slot, you know, and they're looking at upgrading a new GPU, and they're like, should I pay $30 more to, you know, potentially get a second slot available to me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yes, but you can also do that depending on what motherboard you buy. This is what I mean. Like, there's a lot of options out there, right?
Yeah.
Because like
Add-in
maybe
card,
you don't
yeah.
have a lot of, maybe you don't have a very large, literally a very large board, so you don't have the option to do an add-in card. But if you have an ATX motherboard, then you can just buy an add-in card that you can put a, you know, I think M.2.
Yeah, and
SSD on.
those are cheap as hell, and they could.
Those are
I
pretty
mean,
cheap,
and
right?
they
So
really
then you
only
have- so
use. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have a lot of flexibility. It also opens you up more to like, it keeps your options open too, right? You get more choice of what you want to put in your system. So I think it's a cool idea, but for me, again, I think it really boils down to who would need it.
Yeah. It looks like the chat's missing the days of multiple GPU setups. I will say, the thing I miss about it, even though it's not practical, is multi GPU setups look damn cool.
They look amazing.
right. You
Yeah.
got you're like, how many GPUs do you have in your system? I've got 4.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's
Okay.
it's the American mentality
right.
to PC building.
Yep.
Just more, just supersize it.
So
You know what's cooler than a
God.
V8? V12.
yeah, it's right. Does it make the game faster? No, but okay. You
No,
know,
in fact,
hey,
it
but at
stutters
least-
like crazy,
yeah,
but
yeah.
look at how
But
amazing
look
it
how
looks.
cool it looks. For sure. All right, a couple more. Is there anything in the chat that I'm missing that we've seen come through? Sorry.
People are demanding I have beer.
Okay.
So
We will get beer. We're going to lunch right after
we're
this.
going to lunch. I'm going to get a
we'll
beer.
Get this guy a goddamn beer. Two
I
more.
appreciate y'all looking out. for me.
I have one from the chat
Oh,
that
please.
actually I wanted to bring out. I don't know if you're going to get to it.
No.
No.
Sorry, I just haven't been able to watch the chat.
No, okay, that's
yeah, yeah.
good because I've been trying to keep tabs on it.
Thank
I
you.
think this is a fun one to answer. So it's James asked earlier in the chat, why hasn't Microsoft made an Xbox / big screen mode for Windows? Free me from always needing a mouse and keyboard when I want to game on my couch with a controller.
That is the ultimate question that Microsoft does need to address when it comes to handhelds. I've done this a couple of times when I'm doing handheld reviews, especially if SteamOS or Chimera doesn't happen to work on a handheld that I'm reviewing. It's down to the individual maker, whether it's Aya with Aya Space or
Which is actually pretty good.
it's actually pretty good, right? But none of them are as clean as SteamOS. None of them just are one-click install. Log into your Steam account, hit install, and then hit play. None of them work like that. And if this is actually going to be a space that Windows is going to be involved in, they have to address it. They have to make it as easy as SteamOS is today.
I think the closest, and I do this on some of my handhelds, is have Steam auto launch and launch into big picture mode.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also not always the best, because sometimes it doesn't actually pick up the controller right away,
Yeah.
and you have to maybe touch the screen to have it
Trying
kind
to
of
remember what I
focus
have in
that window. But then also you can't get the actual hardware drivers or Windows drivers through big picture mode. So
I have a launcher on my Aya Neo Air here. Play Night, I think is the one that I'm using. I'm booting it up right now, so I can tell you for sure. But it's been the closest that I found for a Windows overlay that you install your games, you have an icon on the screen, you can touch it, or you can navigate through the controller and launch it, and it works fairly well. Still not as good as Steam, but
yeah.
it works
Yeah.
pretty well.
I mean, honestly, yeah, the thing for me is like updating, right?
Mhm.
Because it's for me like, each one of them have different launchers and different ways to go in, or you can use Steam Big Picture mode. So for me, it's not really about launching the games and having some sort of front end like that. Is more like, oh, well, I need to get driver updates, whether it's through the OS or through some sort of launcher, where it's like on the ROG Ally specifically, I mean, you have the Armory crate, but then you also have to go into my Asus. Okay. This isn't iOS based.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
That's Play Night.
So, but this is just a game launcher. You can't.
It's just a game line.
Oh, okay,
There
yeah.
is an installer component to it as well.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You can link it to Steam, GOG, Epic if you want to do, and install your games directly from the
Okay,
launcher as
yeah.
well.
What'd you say this was called?
Play Night.
Play Night. Okay. Yeah. I'll have to check that out.
Play NITE. So,
Okay, yeah.
but it's clean.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
But I would still love to see a first-party option from Windows because they really
Yeah.
need one.
Well, I mean, to that question, will they do it?
No.
No, I actually don't. I could see them trying to maybe grease the gears, and make it easier to install.
But it would only work
and
off
things
Windows
like
Play
that.
Store games.
Yeah. Or have some sort of hey, well, they've got Armory Crate, or Lenovo has Legion Space, or third-party options like this.
Yeah.
But maybe they make an Xbox front end that you can launch your games with, and it'll attach to other stores. But once again, that's not the pain point for me. The pain point is you have to minimize that to then go update drivers and things like that.
Yes.
And so they're not going to be able to do that in some sort of Xbox front end either,
Mhm.
in my mind. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't think they will.
We've been asking for this for probably since Windows 10 came out, honestly, because the UI, like how it built off of Windows 8, and just it seemed very simplified. They had tablet mode kind of stuff. It seemed like a natural fit or evolution for it. Crickets. So
Yeah.
I mean, as much as Microsoft has talked, at least from their game division, have talked about how doesn't matter what platform you play on. I think my guess is that the priority levels do not justify that kind of investment of resources. I think the number of people, relatively speaking, the number of people who play with a PC connected to a living room TV is still much smaller than the console side. People just buy a console, right?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it has to do with resources. I would love to see it. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
I just think, unfortunately, we human beings have to sleep and eat and be able to afford salaries for people. So, alas.
Yeah. Well, and on the handheld specifically too, I do wonder if it's a partner kind of thing where like I said, Asus is very excited to have their Armory Crate on there. Lenovo has Legion Space,
Yeah.
so maybe if Microsoft actually came in and kind of took that away, I don't know if the partners would be upset with that or not. So
We just do one though, just one that everyone just contributes resources to, because that would be nice.
Yeah.
Because right now it feels like, if you want to do it, feels a little bit like controlling RGB lights on your damn PC.
Hey, they
Which
figured it out.
Microsoft finally.
They figured it out
Microsoft
7
finally
years
got-
later.
have you
finally
used
got
it though?
but-
Have you used it?
Well, it's pretty rudimentary, but it's
Yeah,
again,
okay.
I'm excited. I'm very excited when the things I want to see happen even a little bit, because it gives me hope.
Yeah.
Foolish hope, maybe, but it gives me hope.
Well, okay. So then, but the thing we haven't addressed is, what if you could actually load Xbox OS, the
Ah,
Xbox
right.
operating system, on a handheld or on a gaming PC that's connected
would
to your
love it.
TV?
Yeah.
Do
I
you
would
think they
love
could
it.
ever do that?
I don't think they will. I think for a couple of different reasons. One, exposing Xbox to a standard bootloader, I think, would promote piracy on the platform. Right now, the reason you can't run Windows on an Xbox is because it's a 100% locked bootloader. I think opening that up and allowing people to start tinkering with that platform kind of negates whatever control they have over it.
I mean, that's the very smart answer. I could give. My more rudimentary answer. I'm really stuck on this word today. My more basic answer is that I also think it would be kind of a nightmare for them, because that is probably optimized specifically for that hardware, because it's standard,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
It's just super standard. They know exactly what they can tune it for, and when you offer a piece of software which is basically like Windows, to a wide range of configurations, then that becomes less of that whole seamless experience, and there could be bugs, and it's just not going to work right. And so even though in our minds, I'm there with you, Adam, even our minds, I think we think of it as oh, you just have an Xbox, so you get to control the hardware. I don't think that's what the reality of it would be. So unfortunately, you wouldn't be I would love the idea of just being able to install that, get that set up, hand that off to my sibling or one of my relatives who want to play like PC games but don't want to have to deal with like the extra that goes with that, and they basically would get the console experience. But I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately.
How about wrapping this all up with a lot of things that we already talked about today? We talked about Windows 12 with potential ARM integration. We talked about game launchers. We've talked about device driver headaches, installs. What if we go back to what I said and just fix
Windows
the control
XP.
panel for Windows? Because that actually fixes almost all of those problems. Right now, it's difficult to install device drivers on here because this isn't a keyboard and mouse driven system. It's a touchscreen based driven system, and the only interface that I have is the Windows keyboard and mouse driven file folder structure.
Yeah,
so how do I find
sure.
my installers? How do I do that? Every installer is going to be different. Versus if they had a touchscreen friendly version, which the Windows
8. You just want to bring back tiles. You miss it.
I mean,
right? I mean,
Don't-
that's what you're talking
don't
about.
put those words in my mouth, but at the same time, if the settings were there and you could access them in a friendly manner on a touchscreen, yes, then yes.
Okay.
But
Like, I'm not saying I want it, but I'm not saying I don't.
I'm not saying I want that. Like, let's not go that far.
Somebody somewhere at Microsoft is watching right now, and they're like, "Yes, Windows Vista, bring it back."
Bring back Metro UI.
Yeah.
But no, Windows has a lot of work to do with consolidation of all of their different settings, and I think consolidating their settings would fix a lot of these pain points that we have for what hardware are you running Windows on, and how do I access that with a touchscreen?
Yeah. So going back to the earlier conversation from today's show when you were talking about like, how come they can't just make it all consolidated? And in the back of my head, I'm thinking about everything I've ever made where it's like, oh, I created that. Okay, well, I've gone along that way for a while. Well, I need to make some changes, so I'm just going to bolt this on top. Okay. Okay, that's working. I need to do this. Okay, I'm going to bolt that on top of it. And then like you get 5 years down the road and you're like, okay, so like my kitchen works, but kind of I don't know if this is like ideal. And then I got to spend all this time.
Does
Like,
anyone remember why
reconfiguring.
I drilled this hole in the wall?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, man, that's a lot of work to unpack all
I know
of
there
that.
was
You know
something
what?
there
I'm
at
just-
one point.
I'm just gonna add another appliance to the counter, and we'll just call it a day. I think that's kind of what happened.
Right now, the control panel for Windows looks like your grandma's Christmas tree setup with like all of the different, adapters.
No, I don't disagree. It's a little jarring sometimes where it's, you're like in settings, and Windows 11 does look very modern, right? And then you click on something, you're like, I'm getting like shades of 2009 again. It's like, oh.
But I mean, even
That's-
things as simple that I use all the time, like mapping a network drive. Since Windows XP, it was always in the same place. If you go to Tools, and it was Map Network Drive. But then they eliminated the tool menu, and so they created a little icon for it in Windows 10. Well, then in the later update of Windows 10, it's no longer even a button that you can click. You have to right-click the context menu on the left-hand side, the
Bar
the
or
bar
whatever, yeah.
menu on my PC, and then go down to Map Network Drive. But in Windows 11, the right-click context menu is different, so you have to show more options, and then go down to Map Network. It's like,
Yeah, right-click,
there
then
was a
right-click.
button there already.
I know.
Why?
I know. This is what I mean by you're just like bolting on extra stuff. You're like, just make it work.
We need Jeff OS. You need to come up with Jeff
Yeah,
OS.
just
There we go.
simplify it all of it.
I'm pretty sure there is a Linux distro called Jeff OS.
Oh, really? Yeah, okay, there you go. We should just go that way.
Yeah.
Okay. We need to get this man a beer. We do have a couple rapid fire, just real rapid fire.
Cool.
Patrick Sullivan asks, can you mention a workstation brand model to get my feet wet without too much investment?
Workstation brand model? Like PC workstation? I mean,
Yes.
there's a couple great ones. There's Puget Systems and probably Falcon Northwest would be the kind of two that I recommend.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I've heard of Falcon Northwest.
yeah, there might be one on the floor behind us.
Yeah. Actually, there's more than one.
Yeah. Honestly, for getting started, those are probably your two best places to look as far as offering customized solutions. # not sponsored.
Yeah. Okay. Dark Helmet asked, I used Jeff's video from a few years back
Great
to
name.
partition. Yeah, friend of the show. I used Jeff's video a few years back to partition my 3080 for sharing with another PC using Hyper-V, but found the video editing software I was using at the time didn't run well in a VM. Do you think DaVinci Resolve, the paid version, will run okay on a VM with a 5950X and a 3080 host?
I think so, yes. If you were using Adobe before, some of the driver sharing didn't play well with Premiere. Like there were some instances where it didn't do well. I used vGPU for an Adobe Premiere editor for quite a while. There were some bugs, like there were, and they're bugs that will never be addressed because it was never an intended use case for that software. But I believe DaVinci doesn't have as many problems running in a VM.
Okay. CosMC, two more questions. CosMC, do you think HomeLab will become more common in 2024, 2025 as cloud services price increase, specifically services like Evernote, Google Photos, Google One, Mint, Netflix?
Absolutely. Me and Wendell are probably two of the biggest proponents to owning all of your own media. And I think the more prices continue to rise for hosted services, whether it's just basic storage or whether it's day-to-day services that we come to rely on, or whether it's AI-based stuff. I believe hosting your own content will become more and more popular.
Okay. And last one that is for everybody. Friend of the show, VC Jester asks, hot chocolate with water or milk?
So my hierarchy
Or
is. My hierarchy is just drink straight chocolate.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing either. My hierarchy is lactose-free milk. Otherwise, I'm in for a real bad time. Water, because otherwise I'm going to be in for a real bad time. And then like boiled milk sometimes is okay. Sometimes it's really not. So I just kind of cut it off at the water.
All right. Another option, marshmallows. Yay or nay? Hot chocolate.
I won't say no to them, but I
Not
like
mandatory.
the-
I prefer
chocolate
whipped
experience.
cream over marshmallows.
Oh,
yeah.
Um,
That.
there you go. Same.
As far as hot drinks, I do have a hierarchy as well, but hot chocolate is kind of down my hierarchy,
Oh,
where
you
it's
just-
not a go-to. I'm more of a hot cider kind of guy,
Oh, that's
or
good
hot tea.
You put warm milk in that?
I do not do warm milk in my hot cider, although my favorite hot cider is you take a little bit of hot cider, you add an ounce of bourbon, you drop a cinnamon stick and a dollop of butter.
Oh.
That is my hot
Ooh.
toddy recipe.
Ooh.
Interesting.
You just-
Okay. Yeah.
You just
Did I just
revamped
blow
all
your
of our
mind?
Yeah.
holiday seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to write that recipe. later.
Yeah. All right. What about marshmallows? Yay, nay.
For hot chocolate, again, I prefer whipped cream.
Okay. What about for cider?
For cider,
Just
no.
kidding.
No.
All right, Willis.
What is
hot
wrong
chocolate.
with you?
Yeah.
Milk, definitely.
What is wrong with you?
Hey, I would try it. I'm just saying. Don't knock it till you try it. Sorry. Willis. Hot chocolate, water, milk, marshmallows.
Milk, hands down. With marshmallow, it's okay, but whipped cream would be great. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think the agreement is whipped cream is the superior additive.
Actually, I would rather go marshmallow
Ooh.
because it's got a little bit of
wrong
bite
with
to
you?
it. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm also somebody who used to just eat bags of marshmallows too. So,
Yeah.
I'm a weirdo. Anyway.
Like, hot chocolate with marshmallows, hold the hot chocolate.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just marshmallows with milk.
Leave the bag.
More milk. Yes.
We actually have one more super chat.
Oh goodness.
And we have a request that we ask Jeff where is it? I lost it. Okay. Do you think cheesecake is a pie?
Do I think cheesecake is a pie?
Pie or cake?
Pie or cake.
Pie or cake?
Are you a pie or cake guy? I mean.
Am I a pie or cake guy? I'm a pie guy.
Okay. So
Fully-
you're
yeah.
you know how to answer this question. then.
I do. Cheesecake's a pie.
Okay. Yep.
It has a crust, which I think makes it a pie.
Oh,
Okay. Sure. I'll
Very
eat
thoughtful
it
answer.
either way. And then super chat from friend of the show, VC Jester again. with a super chat, $2. Thank you so much. Said at least Windows makes it easy to access OneDrive. Oh God. All right, I'm cutting you off. No more super chats. No more super chats. Let's get out of here. Check back next week for your fix of PC talk here on the Full Nerd, award-winning Full Nerd.
Award-winning.
To listen to us on the go, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Pocket Casts, or wherever you can point an RSS feed to. If you are on one of those services, please leave us a 5-star review. If you do, every time you do, Jeff shows up on an episode.
That's right.
So every time.
By the way, Talking Heads, my show is also on all of those platforms. So if you subscribe to the Full Nerd, subscribe to Talking Heads while you're at it.
Award-winning Talking Heads.
Award-winning Talking Heads.
Happening tomorrow, live in the evening.
It's a cute little show you have. 282 episodes.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah, you've got more. No, I get it. I will tell you right now, it's going to be the end of a long day. We're going to be at a brewery. You're going to see unfiltered Adam. This is going to be like hazy IPA.
I can't wait.
Yeah, so,
we all need to tune in.
And I'm not hosting either. So
I've seen 2 Cocktail Adam. I'm really looking forward to Uncut Adam.
Wait. Can we cuss?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I actually don't monetize Talking Heads outside of Super Chats. So
is it going to be sponsored?
So this one actually, no, I don't have a sponsor for this one either. So yeah, no.
Actually, that's not the reason why we don't cuss here on the show, monetization. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tune in. It will be fun. It'll be a damn good time. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, tune in. Normally we start right at 6:00. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit in flux because we need to set up a remote show timing based on getting out of things. So, but stay tuned to my channel. I will announce when that show will go live. Please come and see it because I can't wait to see Uncut Adam.
It'll be a good time. And then so so I do want to say before we get out of here, the potentially next 2 weeks are typically when we do our episodes, our year-ending episodes. We have the best of 2023 or 2023. That's the year we're in, and then a predictions episode. I am working right now and have been for the past little bit to try to get Gordon involved in those because those are always big shows for us, and I would very much like to get him involved. Unfortunately, I do not have anything to announce of what it's going to be or if I can make that happen, but I promise I am working hard to get Gordon involved in those. So the next 2 weeks, we might not be on Tuesday. We might not be at the usual time. We'll see. And hopefully I'll let you know if you're on Discord. I'll definitely keep the Discord people up to date. So just wanted to throw that out there. Elena, thank you for joining us as always. And once again, I need to know where you got that shirt. It's a good shirt.
I don't get to say bye.
Oh yeah, please say bye.
Bye everyone. Also, we had a great group in chat today. So much fun conversation. If you want to join us for more like that, we have a Discord server. Yeah, we'd love to have you. Oh, also one more thing. Sorry. Next Wednesday, we're going to be doing a live PC build with Peachy Tech.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you lock it down?
Yes. As of right now, next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Peachy Tech. We're gonna do a boba themed PC. Yes. So the custom loop. It's gonna be my first custom hard loop. I'm very nervous, but this is gonna be not just any custom hard loop. It's gonna be boba filled liquid in the custom loop.
That's cool.
So
perfect,
super cool.
Because I'm so glad you announced it because today's show is so much about like throwbacks to the beginning of the show because in the very beginning of the show, somebody asked if we were going to have an episode that I forgot the first part of it, but they're like, you should have a boba tea. You should talk about food and it should involve boba tea. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, we are building a PC. We will have boba.
I already picked out a menu.
Okay, he's got the menu. We're going to have boba here, but then it's a boba theme. So Peachy Tech, look her up on YouTube, TikTok. She's awesome. I actually got to meet her for the first time at the ASUS event a couple days ago. She's super cool, going to fit right in. And yeah, she's actually done a boba themed build before, but this one's going to take it to the next level. I'm locking down all the parts. I need to go to Central Computer for a couple more parts, but yeah, I'm very excited about this. And once again, if you want to see me try to do custom hard loop for the first time and maybe break some glass, then definitely
you're doing hard tubing.
Yeah.
Nice.
First time. So anyway, thank you, Jeff, for not only coming on the show but also being here.
Thank you.
Live.
This was fun.
That was fun. What do you want to pimp?
Go subscribe to my channel.
Craft Computing.
Craft Computing. Go check me out. Like, if you like PC World and the Full Nerd, you're gonna like Talking Heads as well. We have a very similar vibe on that show. So
Just more beer.
just more beer. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you everybody for tuning in. It was a damn good time. And Willis, thank you. You're gonna take us out of here.
All right. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Speaking of throwback, last weekend I was at a restaurant and I saw a kid on an iPad, and I think they were watching Paw Patrol or Peppa Pig, and I'm just like thinking to myself, oh man, back in my days, I didn't have streaming platform. I had Saturday morning cartoons.
You had a rock.
I had a rock.
Kid will never know about Saturday morning cartoons.
Kid will
But
never
yeah.
Yep.
Well, anyways, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye.